You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the live tonight. I have a special guest here all the way from the United States of America. But first, I want to let everybody know, hey guys, do me a favor, share this live out far and wide. I think we're going to be able to put a lot of people's, I guess, curiosities to rest tonight. That's what I'm trying to achieve tonight for a lot of people who are wondering. Some background information on some of our community members here in Canada. And a lot of the things that I'm trying to bring out tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is just this. We are all on the same side in this fight against truth within our nation. We are trying to get to the background of why these politicians want to act the way they want to act and why they're pulling the strings the way they're pulling. And we as Canadians, we got to stop fighting each other. We got to stop hating on one another, and we got to start realizing that it's not us against each other, it's us against them. And my focus tonight is this, I want to break bread for most of the Canadians out there with a certain group of people that even myself, and I'll be the first one to admit it, because, you know, humility is a very big thing. I was not understanding years ago on who these community members with, who they work with, who they are, who they stand for, what is it all about? But it wasn't until I myself reached out and wanted to learn myself. What is this all about? I can't be giving informed decisions and information out to people unless I know for myself what the root cause or what these issues are here we have in Canada. And a lot of these questions come, and I know a lot of people are like, we have a huge mass immigration problem in Canada. We need to get these people out of here. We need them to go back to their countries and stuff like that. Well, who better to have on here than an immigration lawyer that is Canadian? Not only is he Canadian, now he works in the United States. And not only does he work in the United States, he's actually a member of the Sikh community in Canada. He was born and raised in Brampton, Ontario. So for all of those people who know Brampton, Ontario, and the stigma that comes from there, just know that this gentleman wants to come on here and he wants to have an in-depth conversation with us about these concerns that we have. And one of the things that I want to have these conversations with is something that I don't usually do, but I want you guys to take notes tonight. And I want you to put down your questions that you have. And later on in the episode, we're going to bring up these questions and we're going to I don't want to say that like I'm giving them permission, but I'm going to have Jay Grewal answer your questions that you have. So without further ado, I've wasted enough time. I want to bring in Jay Grewal. So ladies and gentlemen, give him a warm welcome. Jay, welcome to the podcast. How are you this evening?
Good evening, Pat, and thank you for having me, and I'm great.
So Jay, we got introduced through our mutual friend that we have, Calvir Grewal. So shout out to Calvir. I know he's in here watching. And to the community, the Sikh community that's watching as well. Thank you very much for coming in here and helping get this message out. So we do have members in the chat from the Sikh community that are going to be here to answer any questions and interact with the chat as well. So Jay, you're a lawyer, Canadian born, Canadian raised. Let's get a little background. What is it that you do?
Well, you're right, Pat. I was born in actually Toronto, and I grew up in Brampton.
While Jay is talking about this, I'll request everybody to retweet the space. We are also live stream. Please retweet the actual YouTube channel as well. Thank you.
I've been raised basically in Brampton. You're right, Pat. I was born in actually Toronto, and organization both in the United States and in Canada. We advocate for the right to self-determination for Punjab. We're the organization that's holding the referendums. And it was the member of our organization, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was assassinated by the Indian government. And and so we are on the forefront of what's happening with the Khalistan movement, both in Canada and the United States and throughout the world.
So growing up in Brampton, you experienced the life of Canada, like you were born and raised here. Your parents are obviously from India?
Yes, my parents came in the early 70s, end of 69 or 68, around there, my dad, and then my mom in the early 70s.
And what was happening in India at that time that made your parents want to move here to Canada?
Well, at that time, there wasn't really much. There was a movement for more rights, more autonomy. I mean, to get back to why Punjab is in the position that it's in today and why there's a movement for Khalistan, it's a complicated matter. But India becomes an independent country in 1947, and all the promises and all the commitments that were made to the Sikhs, who contributed the most for the independence of South Asia, they were all violated by the Indians. They said, sorry, you know what, things change. I mean, we're not going to honor these commitments. And I can go through the commitments if you want. But nevertheless, by the 50s, they started to realign states in India along linguistic boundaries. They said, hey, look, if you speak this language, then that should be your state. If you speak this language, that should be your state. Because India has many languages, and India has never been one entity the way it is now. For Punjab, they said, no, we don't recognize Punjabi as a language. Punjabi is not a language, it's a dialect. So you're not going to get your own state. We're not going to divide these boundaries. And in the 50s, people started having mass demonstrations demanding a linguistic state and to be treated, in a similar manner. And it was around then in the 60s, 70s that my parents left. They saw the writing on the wall, things were not well, and people started to kind of leave. At that point, though, things weren't as bad as they got in the 80s and 90s.
Okay, so, and in the 80s and 90s, what happened in India?
So what happened was, I mean, so the Sikhs, so a little bit back in 80, I think 1980 or 82, I can't remember exactly precisely. The Sikhs made, or maybe it was 78, around then. I mean, I can't remember the exact date. But the Sikhs put forward what was called a memorandum. They said, look, or a resolution, sorry. And it made demands. It said, look, honor your promises to the Sikhs that the Indian government made in the 40s, right? They said, give us rights. I mean, right now, under the Indian constitution, Sikhism as a religion is defined as a part of Hinduism. So we're legally defined as being Hindus. And there's no problem with those who wish to practice Hinduism, but we're not Hindus. We don't believe in the philosophy, the teachings of Hinduism. We said, look, we're not Hindus. So give us our religious rights, give us, our freedoms, fulfill those promises, and we have no issue with India, right? We'll stay with India. And the Indians refused to implement those resolutions. So by 82, there was a movement, a civil disobedience movement where Sikhs were not cooperating with India. And by 1984, at the beginning of May, the Sikhs, so a little bit more, Punjab, where the Sikhs come from, at that point was called the breadbasket of India. All the food, majority of the food for India comes from Punjab. And in May and at the start of June, the Sikhs said, you know what? We're not going to sell you our grains. We're not going to sell you our food. All the food that we make here, we're not going to pay our taxes. We're quitting. And right then, on June 1984, the Indian government attacks all the Sikh temples, and the main Sikh temple, which is called Harmandir Sahib, the Akal Takht, they sent in tanks, they had chemical weapons. They sent in, and they completely destroyed it, and thousands of people were killed. And then that's what starts the armed struggle for independence. And from 1984 to about 1995, there's an armed struggle for independence, right? There's people with arms on one side, people with arms on the other. By 1995, it kind of dies out. And that's when you see a lot of the migration of Sikhs to Canada and other parts of the world, and they were recognized as refugees as a result of the oppression they had suffered in India. And by 1995, the whole movement is kind of dies down because most insurgencies last about 10 years, and there's a lot of killing. I mean, there were villages that were wiped out of all men. I mean, the Indian army, the Indian law enforcement wiped out entire villages. There were no men left. There weren't weddings in those villages for almost 10 years because there were no men left in those locations, right? So by the year 2005, now a generation is kind of coming back up. That's when Sikhs start re-asking them, what happened? How did this happen, right? So 95, everybody's freaked out. A lot of people are murdered. No one wants to say anything. Everybody's terrified. 10 years ago, 2005, people started asking questions. 2007, the Justice Organization work that comes into fruition. And then by 2008, we start saying, look, what happened, and there's another chapter I can get into later, but what happened in India in 1984 November specifically was a genocide. I mean, you murdered Sikhs. The state organs were used to kill Sikhs. It was a systematic plan, and this is not me saying it. They did their own commission, and the commission said, look, government lists were used, police were used, media was used, government officials used election lists to identify Sikh homes, and they killed all Sikhs, as many as they could, right, for 3 days. So then the campaign to recognize it as a genocide, starts in Canada, it starts all over the world. And then from there, by 2000, and that's in 2007, and by 2015, we said, you know what, we want to have a referendum. We don't want to remain within India. We want to do it democratically. And that's when the referendum campaign that's now, being seen all over in different parts of the world. The last one, I think, was in Canada. So you see it all over the world now.
Right. So, and that is where we see this yellow banner, this yellow flag with your symbol on it. And we see it very big and prominent in Vancouver. A lot of people are kind of lumping you in with the Indian community, but you guys don't belong to the Indian community. You're ostracized from the Indian community. You're targeted from the Indian community. You're attacked. You're fighting on the streets with Indian members. And this is something that I have a feeling that my audience really doesn't know that this is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. And these people have been, like we see, free Palestine. Nobody has said free the Sikhs, when they were going through this genocide in in India and what was going on. But you guys were your own civil movement, your own standing up for your rights, standing up against the government. Are you guys starting, to my audience, are you guys starting to kind of catch a pattern to who these religious people are, who these Sikh community members are? And I understand that when you go through these kind of things and you experience these kind of things, you might have some experience, some education, some knowledge, some proper ways of what to do and what not to do. And I think we have this opportunity tonight and in the future when we move forward to learn a lot from the community of what your struggles were and how they compare to our struggles here in Canada today. Now, I want to just kind of briefly touch on what is a Sikh? How did a Sikh become a Sikh? How does one become a Sikh? And I want you to go into the warrior. I want to touch base on the warrior.
Well, I mean, I may not be well versed in religious doctrine to properly explain it, and I ask forgiveness if I don't do a just job. Nevertheless, a Sikh is someone who follows the teachings of the Sikh gurus. They're very easily identifiable, right? Sikhs have a turban. Sikhs wear a metal bracelet. Sikhs are not allowed to cut their hair. Sikhs have, certain visually recognizable attributes. Now, some people ask, well, why do Sikhs, dress in such an open and easily identifiable way? Well, it's because when the Sikh religion was there's many reasons, and one of the reasons, and again, this is what I've been told, was that the Sikhism starts under actually Islamic occupation of northern India. So where the Muslims had come in from the Middle East and from Afghanistan and Persia, they were coming in and forcibly converting people to Islam. Now, Sikhism starts then and says, look, we're not Muslim and we're not Hindu. We don't believe in the caste system. We don't believe in this idea that your birth defines who you can be in life. We believe in merit. People can be whoever they want to be, right? So we're rejecting this idea of idol worship and having castes defining your position in society, but we're also rejecting Islam. I mean, the way Islam was at that point in time, forcibly converting people at the end of a sword. So we're not you guys either. We don't believe in this. We believe in women rights. Sikh names, if you've noticed, they're unisex. We believe everybody can be equal, right? So we go so far as to say, no, there's no concept that a woman is less than a man, I mean, there are differences, but every woman has the same rights as a man. So we start at that point, and from there we spread. And at some point, the Islamic Empire at that time, it was called the Mughal Empire, they started to view Sikhs as a threat. They said, hey, look, these guys are really, coming in here, they're organizing, and they said, look, they're interfering in our stuff, in our affairs, in our governance. And that's when the conflict with the Sikhs starts. So the Sikhs, they have this concept of saint, soldier, that you can't just be a saint, because if you're a saint, you're going to be killed. That's it. I mean, you have no means. You're not going to sit there and say, I'm meditating, I'm praying, I should be protected. No, it's not. That's not how the real world works. But you just can't be a soldier either, because then you become sadistic, you become hateful, vengeful. You have this anger in you. You want to get revenge, you want to get equal, or something you say, I'm trying to get justice. But it becomes this focus on the violence aspect of it, right? So we said you got to be both a saint and a soldier, a sant sipahi, right? So that's the concept of where Sikhs come from, and that's why we have a kirpan, which is a sword, where it says, look, you must always be ready to defend the weak. It's your duty. I mean, there's a famous saying, it's a sin to do bad, but it's a bigger sin to allow bad to happen. I mean, you must stand up against injustice, right? It's not that you permit it to happen. It's a bigger sin. You know what's happening is wrong, and you permitted it to happen. So that's where the Sant Sipahi concept comes in.
Okay, so that's a great insight to understand. It's a very, very straight moral compass. To sin is bad, but to allow somebody to do something is an even worse sin. That is bad.
Yep.
I like that. I like that concept. But also you're the warrior, right? You were the warrior. You protected maharajas, you protected kings, you protected queens. You were side by side in the trenches with Canadians in World War I. You were side by side with Canadians in World War II. You guys were side by side with us under British monarchy rule at the time. But you guys partnered right up with us, and we fought side by side. And a lot of people have missed that concept, either in the history books are being manipulated. I don't know, but I do know that I've really come to admire the strength of the men in the Sikh religion and how they are very, very culturally, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very culturally aligned with who they are and how they got to get to where they are. And they're very proud people and very honest, hardworking, and really, honestly, like yourself, lawyers, doctors, owners of businesses, all of these great, contributors to society, like we want in a country that brings in immigration. Well, these people have contributed to Canada in more ways than a lot of people know. But we have a hard issue in Canada when it comes to immigration. And a lot of people are seeing these foreign students coming from India. And when they come into Canada, they are coming here under these foreign visas for education, but they're creating a lot of havoc in the communities. So you grew up in Brampton, you knew what it was like. You had friends that were white, you were all mixed, multicultural, you guys all got along and everything. But now you see the Brampton community is starting to get a little overrun. And we see instances in Brampton where, there was a big, large fight in a parking lot not too long ago. Do you know much about that? Did you hear about that?
I wouldn't know on a specific instance, but I am aware of fights that happen. I mean, that's it. I've seen videos. I don't know which, specific topic you're. But now, let's get back to my experience in Brampton. I moved to Brampton in 1986. I think I was in grade 3 at that point, right? I went to Jefferson Public School. I don't know if anybody knows the J section in Brampton. I was there, and Brampton at that point was a really amazing place. Was there racism? Yeah, but the same kids that were racist to me in grade 3 were some of my best friends by grade 9. I mean, you grew up together. No one knows who is, right? So I was different. In my class, I think there was only 3 South Asians that were Punjabi Sikh. Majority was a white class, and people grow up. Kids are kids, right? They were some of my best friends later in life. They helped me out a lot, right? And even when I see them later in life, great people. Now, the idea and the concern that every Canadian is having with mass migration is a legitimate concern. I mean, the Sikh community has it. I'm born and raised in Canada. I don't want to have such mass migration from anywhere, not just Sikhs specifically, but from anywhere. There has to be a controlled system so that there's a period where people integrate. But if you bring in such mass volumes of young people with no families, with no parental connections or family connections, you have no, boundaries. Like I look back to when I was a kid. Some of the reasons why I didn't do bad things was because of my family. My parents were there. I was scared of my father. I was scared of my mom. I didn't want to do bad things, right? So, you have those things that stop you. But when you bring in just students, I mean, even if I had gone, or I'm sure most of your viewers or even yourself, if in your early 20s you had gone to a place, let's just say Brazil, you knew no one knew you there, you didn't speak the language, I'm sure you would have gotten into some trouble if there's such a mass number of you there. And then you said, hey, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm just going to go back to Canada. And that's what it is, right? So, yes, most Sikhs are against the mass migration of students of any community. But the question that needs to be asked is, who's setting this policy? I mean, where's this policy coming from? Is it the immigrant student that's told the government of Canada, this is your policy, you will permit me and others to come in on the student visa program? Or is there, quote unquote Canadians, I mean, we can argue whether they are looking out for Canada's interest or not, but Canadians that are behind the scene setting this policy and then allowing this pressure cooker to build up at the ground level, where now you have Canadians fighting Canadians that are both at the lower prong of decision making. None of us are making policy in Canada. We are following the law. We don't set or make the law, but we are now fighting each other. I mean, people that, I consider myself more right-wing than liberal, right? I mean, I do have liberal values on certain aspects, but I would say maybe centrist right. But now you see this divide where people are just not working together. And Pat, you can speak to what happened during the truckers' protest. Sikhs came out. A lot of Sikhs came out and helped. A lot of Sikhs were up in front, right? Some of our people got arrested. But now you see this divide. They're like, no, you know what? We don't like you. And it's just shocking what's happened, right? The same community that was working together, the same people that were working together, instead of looking up and saying, who's setting these policies? Why is this happening? Are now fighting each other. And it's giving space and room for people that make policy that's destructive to us to have the ability to continue along their process,
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. We had Sikh members of the Sikh community in Ottawa. And in fact, Calvert testified at my trial about it. And then we also had another gentleman who had his turban ripped right off his head from the law enforcement that did it. And we all know, but people in my chat might not know that actually, ladies and gentlemen, if you are to tear a Sikh member's turban off his head, it is practice in his religion that he has to actually kill you for doing that. And it's a very no-no. But these men, after having that happen to them, didn't follow through because they knew that that's what the police wanted them to do. I'm trying to bring this and bridge this gap for a lot of people in here to understand who this community is, because I believe if a lot of people have ever read The Art of War, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that stands very firm and strong because these people have been fighting oppression, been fighting genocide in their own lives, in their own countries, have been chased out of their countries, they've been monsterized by their own community, by the Indian country of India. India has called you guys a terrorist group and have deemed you guys, insurrectionists. And I seen a comment in here about, but Jagmeet Singh was aligned with the Khalistani movement and had to actually denounce his involvement with the Khalistani movement. I know Jagmeet Singh, even within the Khalistani movement, is not respected in the Khalistani movement, ladies and gentlemen. So for those, when you see and you hear about who our Sikh people are and the Khalistani people are, and what they've gone through and what they stand for and their religion, and you watch a politician such as Jagmeet Singh acting the way he acts, he is not even practicing his religion. He's not even acting. He is wearing that turban as a symbol to get votes. And that is something that we witnessed in our last 6-7 years of Jagmeet Singh being part of the political theater that is Ottawa. And he was pandering to get votes so that he could stay in this coalition with Justin Trudeau. And we watch how this works and this mass immigration. We have the group here that they're even saying what's happening to their communities is not a product of them. It's a product of policies. It's a product of government. It's a product of other people higher up that are making these decisions that we're fighting against each other about, but we're fighting this way. And Jay said this earlier, so I'm going to steal your line, when we should be fighting this way. We should be punching up and not punching to the left or to the right. So I thank you for bringing a lot of clarity to that for us, because it's I'm hoping that people can see this for what it's worth. We need to start respecting each other a little bit more in Canada. Well, not a little bit, a lot more. And we start to bridge these gaps. This is a very powerful thing. When we can bring communities, and not only communities, other ethnicities. It's exactly what religions practice about. We love thy neighbor. And that is what, and that's in a Christian setting, but I believe you guys would have the same in the Sikh community and the Sikh religion as well. But I wanted to touch base on your experience, your advice, what would you say is the biggest problem for the Sikh community these days?
The biggest concern, I mean, the Sikh community is a very broad term, right? So, and we should break it up into different sections, right? There's Sikhs that are born and raised in Canada, like myself. I mean, I have a certain view. Then there's Sikhs that have just come in the last 7 years. They have a completely different view. And even for myself, communicating amongst ourselves is very difficult. I can speak English fluently. I have difficulty, communicating in Punjabi, understanding jokes. My sentences don't sound proper, right? Just because I was raised in Canada. And then you have, other, let's just say the older community that came in the 70s, 60s, such as my parents, right? Now, the Sikhs in Canada, the ones that are born and raised here, they share many of the concerns that, let's just say, what mainstream media would define as a right wing, right? They'll say, hey, look, we don't want mass import of students. I mean, I have children, my family has children, right? They don't need to be competing for a Taco Bell job, or a Tim Hortons job with a lineup that goes around the block, right? We don't want to see that. We want to be able to. I used to work at Taco Bell as a kid. I worked as Famous Players. I think Famous Players bought out after. I worked at Canadian Tire. So these are the jobs I had, and they weren't hard jobs to get, right? You would fill in a resume, you would get the job. It was a great experience. I did it in high school. I learned responsibility. It helped me out later in life. So this idea that let's import all this people, irrespective of whether it's Sikhs or whoever they are, it is not conducive to a society that isn't able to absorb them, right? We need to build an infrastructure. We need to build everything for it. Now, that being said, I don't blame those people that are coming here. I know what's happening in Punjab. In Punjab or in India, they passed laws that if you openly speak about Khalistan, you promote, not specifically Khalistan, let's just say that challenging the territorial integrity of India, you can face life in jail. So you have political opinion being criminalized in India, and people are afraid of it. So people leave. People are like, look, you know what? I don't want to stay here. I know I'm at risk. I can face life imprisonment just for putting up a Khalistan flag in front of my house. Now, in regards to what concerns do we have in Canada, the biggest concern most Sikhs are talking about is the fact that Canada is allowing India to become, actively, engaging in espionage and killings on Canadian soil. Now, and what I mean by that is Hardeep Singh Nijjar is killed in 2023, right, in June. At that point, everybody's like, in the Sikh community, we know what happened. We knew it. Everybody's like, hey, look, this is the Indian government did this. No way. The Indian government and all their mouthpieces all over their media were like, oh, this is inter-gang violence. There's no gangs at that point. I mean, there were no violence in 2023, if you recall. There wasn't this level of what's happening now, but we'll get to that in a second. And the Sikhs were like, no, this is not interstate violence. This is India attacking Sikhs for their political opinion, because Hardeep Singh Nijjar was a member of Sikhs for Justice, and he was promoting a referendum, and we'll get to that later too. Now, it was when the Americans discovered a plot to kill Gurpatwant Singh Pannu in America, and they were hiring these hitmen who happened to be DEA agents, that did everything come to light. That here are the recordings of Indian government officials, or let's say security officials. I think his name is Yadav. He's a member of their intelligence wing that now America says is one of the most wanted people in America, and he's MIA. No one knows where he is. Him and other officials were guiding this movement to kill. And the Indian guy, this guy, I forget his name now, he's in a US prison now. He was telling the DEA agent that, yeah, it's our team that killed Nijjar, and we want to kill all these other people. We have so many people in Canada. The Prime Minister of Canada comes forward and says, look, we have credible evidence that this is what's happening here. Then the Canadians start to, our law enforcement starts to follow Indian elected officials, spying on them, let's just say, listening to their conversations. They unearth an entire ring of extortion, of violence, of murder, of racketeering, all running from the consulate. As a result, the Canadians expel
from Indian consulate
in Canada. They expel 6 Indian diplomats, accusing them. The Prime Minister, there's a reporting of it, you can Google it. The Prime Minister says these guys are running, extortions. These are Indian diplomats. So now they're kicked out. India's now super mad, right? But the Sikhs felt, wow, you know what? We got safety now, right? These guys who are running these gangs from the consulates, they have diplomatic immunity, so you can never charge them, right? Hey, you catch them, I'll take a flight back to India. I have diplomatic immunity. They're gone back. And that really gave this breathing space where people felt secure. But today, what Carney is doing, and again, most Canadians may say, hey, listen, we're not worried about this, we don't care, but I want you to know something. What Carney is doing is he's allowing all those diplomats back. Now extortion in the South Asian community is at a fever pitch. They're setting up special, task force in police departments to tackle this extortion. Didn't exist prior to 2023, only happens after 2023. And when those bullets fly, I mean, I don't know if anybody's shot a firearm, if anybody's seen a bullet, it doesn't have anybody's name on it. It can very easily be someone someone we know, right? I mean, that's the risk. So what we fear is that Carney is now intentionally, with the mindset that hopefully this only remains within the South Asian community, allowing these diplomats to come back and engage in the same activities because there were no consequences for them. None of them were prosecuted. None of them were arrested. They just went back to India, and now they're back. And it's such a dangerous situation that Canadians are not aware until, people, and it's that safe, more people start getting hurt. And then perhaps there might be some action. But at this point in time, there is a ticking time bomb. It's the Indian consulate, and they wish to malign the image of the Sikhs because they're saying, hey, look, these guys are gangsters. RCMP ceases. They go, no, all these extortions are being run by this one guy named Lawrence Bishnoi is his name. He's a Punjabi guy. His father is a police officer. He's a gang member. I mean, an officer as a father. He's in a prison in Gujarat, which is the Prime Minister of India's home state. So he's living in this life of luxury. And he's somehow from behind bars pulling all these extortion rings. I mean, how is it possible? It's just shocking.
I see, and we talked about this earlier, and I don't think a lot of the audience knows this, so I'm going to share this with everybody. But for anybody who's Canadian, I don't know if you want to go for a tour to India anytime soon, but this is a map of the top 10 worst places to go in the world if you are a Christian. And India is at number 12, just below Afghanistan. Afghanistan is sitting at number 11, and number 12 is India. So if you're a Christian or a Khalistani in India, it seems that you're not very well appreciated if you go to India. Yet you're going to have mass immigration of Indians sent to Canada. You thought we were worried about Muslims. Now we're worried about the Indians. Now we're worried about the Muslims and the Indians that we are bringing into this country. And our Sikh community has been speaking out about this, and it falls on deaf ears because a lot of people out there are lumping them all together. And this is why I wanted to bring this up, to bring the awareness for people. I have a super chat and I wanted to get to it. It's question Jay. And the super chat states, Jay, on the record, would you oppose any foreign or intelligence-linked interference in Khalistan activism in Canada, even if it benefited your cause or clients?
100%. So I want to just get back to this, right? So where this question, in my opinion, flows from is that prior to Hardeep Singh Nijjar's assassination, the prominent Indian narrative was that the Khalistani movement is supported and funded by Pakistan. So they're saying, hey, look, this isn't an indigenous movement. It isn't a legitimate movement. It's a foreign government that's funding this, kind of like the way how the Iranians are saying that, hey, look, these protests were arranged by America and Iran. So it's trying to say they're not legitimate. But when we started doing referendums, and what they said was, look, majority of the Sikhs don't want Khalistan. Nobody wants to do this. It's only 5 guys in the basement. So when we started to do referendums all over the world, hundreds of thousands of people started coming out. I mean, I was in Brampton. And I don't know if anybody knows Brampton, but it went from Gore Road, the line up on Beauvais, all the way to 410. I mean, it was a lineup like you've never seen. The cops asked us to shut it down half an hour early and say, look, you can let these people vote, but no one else is going to be allowed in because there's no more room, right? So when you saw this mass turnout of people who wish to have their voice heard, at that point, that narrative that this is a foreign funded, this is Pakistan, Sikhs don't want it, well, it kind of blew up in their face because they're like, well, where are all these people coming from? So from then, the narrative, and that around 2023, then the narrative has been, oh, they're all gangsters. This is gangsters. This is criminal terrorists. These are gangster terrorists. All these Khalistanis are terrorists because they lost that narrative. So now they want to shift the conversation. And how do they enforce it? Well, they send their gang members here. You have Indian diplomats doing extortion in Canada. And you push this policy through your diplomatic missions. And then you say, oh, it's the Sikhs who are doing it. It's absurd. I mean, right. Are there Sikhs that are bad? Of course. There's bad everybody, right? There's Christians that are bad. There's Sikhs, everybody. But is it the Sikhs that are organizing these extortion rings? No. The RCMP, and I mean, you can look at on the news, the Canadian Prime Minister at the time kicked out 6 diplomats precisely for that activity. And now it's kind of washed under the rug. It's unacceptable, but it's very dangerous too.
And it's threatening to your own community. It's threatening to us here. And I'm not trying to say we're not Canadian, but to Canadians. So yep. Just to Canadians alone, this is very detrimental. And when they're bringing these foreign students in, we're bringing them into Canada. They have no parents here. They have no community that they belong to. They have no discipline here in Canada. And what you're seeing are these, and everybody's saying, look at the names of all these people who are on Canada's most wanted lists and all of this stuff. This is the group of kids that they're bringing to Canada. And this is why, is because they instantly pull into the gang scene and they work in these syndicates. And then they take their marching orders in order to stay here. And then they go on the lam and you can't find them. So ladies and gentlemen, we're starting to get a little bit of an insight as to our immigration problem with these foreign students that are coming here. And who better to bring it to than Jay? He's an immigration lawyer. He's definitely somebody who I would look at as an informative knowledge on these kind of incidences that are going on here. So this should bring a lot of attention and kind of hopefully bring some clarity to some of the viewers to understand, guys, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. These people stand with us, and they are brought into this fold after seeking refuge, as we have all the left screaming, oh, free Palestine, the genocide. What about the genocide of our Sikh community? Nobody, went to bat for them. You know what they did? They came here, they integrated into Canada, They became culturally to Canada, but still held on to their beliefs and their religions. And now they're fighting in their religion. And now what? What's happening? They know they have a stance over in India to have their country of Khalistan in their own country. And all they want to do is make sure that they are given what is awarded to them by law. But instead, what are they doing? They're sending foreign Indian gangsters over to Canada, unaliving members of parliament, members of the Sikh community, using their gang squad of foreign students. And these guys, if Khalistani, okay, so to the crowd, to the chat, Jay, I want you to open this honestly. If Khalistan was to be formed tomorrow, and the United Nations deemed your referendum a success, and they gave you Khalistan, is it not true that Sikh people would move to Khalistan and take back their country?
So I mean, that's not 100%. I mean, you can't speak in definitives, like, is it 100%? But a lot of Sikhs, 100% they'll move. There's a lot of Sikhs that wish now, they identify themselves as Khalistani. They say, hey, look, we're Canadian, we respect Canada. Canada has given us a lot. But if we could, we would go to Khalistan. But we can't, right? So we're stuck in this. What I don't understand, though, honestly, Pat, are the people who say they love India. They say India is a great country. They say India is #1, all this nonsense. Why don't you live there? Why do you come to Canada? I don't understand that, right? It defies logic. Though, I mean, for Sikhs, we say we come here because we have no choice. We're going to be killed there. They're going to charge us. They're going to arrest us. They watch us on social media. They watch all our activities. They have police stations that are set up specifically to target young Sikh men to ensure that they don't talk about Khalistan. We live in a constant state of fear. But I don't understand all these other people who say, yeah, India's the best. I love it. #1, Modi, go there. I saw this meme once on Twitter. It's like, India's #1, but I don't want to live there. I mean, it makes no sense, right? So 100% this has to be done. Now, back to what you're saying, do people of like, so let's get back to some of the situation, right? Imagine, Pat, you go to a country, right? You go to just say Japan, and you're an advocate for Alberta's independence. And Canada is basically hunting down anybody who supports Alberta's independence, right? So, they're killing people, they're arresting people, they're taking their lands, freezing their bank accounts, as you've experienced, right? So you flee or you leave and you're in Japan, right? And all of a sudden in Japan, people are calling you names, right? The Japanese don't know who you are, right? You're there. It's in a way necessity. It's in a way choice. You respect the Japanese people. They gave you this opportunity. You're there. You work, right? But you dream about, hey, if only Alberta had become an independent country. And then Alberta comes an independent country. A significant number of people would leave. Now, some that had gone to Japan, maybe they married Japanese people. Maybe they have kids now. Maybe they have a job. Maybe they won't leave. But a lot of the young people that are coming here right now, a lot of students, I guarantee a lot of them would go. The Sikh ones, at least. I can't speak to the other people, but a lot of them would, because no one wants to be called names. No one wants to be, degraded. They see the situation here, right? They understand all this, but they have nowhere to go. They're stuck in the situation. Now, the Canadian government is largely responsible for them coming here, but that's a different discussion, and we just touched on it already. But yeah, people do want to live in a place where they are accepted. In India, the same way in Canada, we constantly have to defend our rights. Why do we wear a kirpan? Why do we have a kada? I mean, the Indians consistently say, no, you can't do this. There's always a legal battle. There's always all these things that are happening in India for Sikhs to defend themselves. There's nowhere in the world where Sikhs can say, hey, look, I'm a Sikh. Everybody knows I'm a Sikh. You're a Sikh. There's no issue here. I can wear my kirpan. Everybody understands. Listen, this is not a weapon in the sense of intimidation. We all know what it is. It's all good. There's no place in the world like that for Sikhs. So yes, do I believe all of them would go? No. I mean, a lot of them won't go. I mean, sorry, not all of them would go. But do I believe a significant number, and specifically the individuals that have come in recent years? 100%. I mean, they're in a transition trying to adjust to the culture in Canada. I mean, I was born and raised here. Then someone asked, did I go to Bramley? No, I went to Chinguacousy. But, one of the questions that I saw in the chat. But, I fit in. I mean, I know Canadian culture. I grew up all my life here, right? So I know what's going on. But those guys, they're not the same way for myself. If I was to go to Punjab, I'm not catching Punjab humor. I'm not catching their cultural references. I don't know, right? I'm not grown up in that environment. I understand Punjabi, but my Punjabi is not at the level where I catch all the jokes, all the meanings. I don't get those things, right? So there would be a lot of people that would leave. And like you said before, what I don't understand is how the right wing, the right of center that supports family values, religion, Christianity, morals, is the side that supports in recent years, India, and saying India is the place we need to do business with. India is someone we share our values with. I don't get it. I mean, like you said, the 12th most dangerous place in the world for Christians. BJP is an extension of the RSS. The RSS in their manual have said, if you are Christian or Muslim, because Muslim is a religion that was imported to India, and Christian, obviously they came with the colonial powers, said either at minimum you're a stupid person, or at worst you're a traitor. Like, that is a range that they view Christians. And all my Christian brothers and sisters who say, hey, listen, India is great. I mean, go visit there. Say you want to open up a church. Watch what happens to you. It's the same thing that happens to Sikhs. Sikhs are persecuted because of their religious beliefs. So are Christians. Now, the Christian story doesn't get out as much because there was an armed struggle in Punjab, and we spent 10 years fighting, and it was huge, and a lot of people left. But Christians are not safe there. I mean, it's the reason why it's the 12th most dangerous place for Christians. And those are the people that I see the right connecting with. And I just don't understand it. It's almost dumbfounded. How is that possible? The people that kill you in their country are the people that you say are right. And Sikhs, I can't believe these Khalistanis are here. I don't understand it at all.
Right. And I got one question here. So, Jay, any idea what the black balls hanging off the cars are? Are they part of a gang? When you see that? No idea.
I apologize. I'm not knowledgeable about gang culture, so I can't say.
No,
It may or may not be. Yeah.
We see it a lot on cars around Toronto, around Canada. They have these little balls, so it's not anything to do with a gang. Maybe I'll ask Calvin about that. I see this question go. This is from Hard Chief. Sikhs completely understand the pain of watching your culture and way of life being overwhelmed by foreigners. We've witnessed India do to Punjab, our homeland, what is now happening in Canada.
Yep.
So there, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what I'm saying is we have an ally in this, and not even an ally. I would almost say definitely. I would say a brotherhood when it comes to freedoms of our culture, freedoms of our rights, our freedoms to speech, freedoms to religion, all of that stuff. When it comes to that, because I think we can learn something from you guys. I think understanding you a lot more, understanding the Sikh religion a lot more is something that should be very informative for Canadians to understand. Like, they have gone through the shit, and I apologize for the language. They've gone through the shit, and their family has gone through that. And the pleasure to meet Calveer's father. I got the pleasure to meet your elders. I got the pleasure to go to temple. I got the pleasure to see and hear from the people themselves and hear it for myself, and the respect and the concerns and the way you respect your elders, the way you show your adoration for your mothers, the way this is the culture that we had as kids here in Canada. And now we see that culture, eroded, degraded, the way kids talk to their parents these days, the way that, it's kind of nice to see in some ways that you guys are still carrying the traditions within your communities, but yet you're still here adopting Canadian ways, Canadian policies, and Canadian culture. You stick mostly to your communities because of the threat from these gang groups of the India groups that are coming over here to Canada. And ladies and gentlemen, it's only going to get worse. Carney wants to push the 2100 initiative, the Century Initiative, by 2100 to have 100 million people in Canada. And it's only going to go worse, because when they got these bad guys in India, they don't want them in India. They want India to be good. So what are they going to do? They're going to cart these kids over to Canada.
100%, Pat. And here's what I say, right? I'm born and raised in Canada. I want Canada to succeed. Canada has so many untapped resources, right? Why is it that 2 people at minimum are required to work 1 job each to be successful? Now, we talk about replacement, right? People say, hey, look, there's a great replacement. Again, who orchestrated this? Who's made it where Canadian families cannot survive on one income? You will never have replacement, even for myself, right? I mean, I know my cousins, some of them have one kid each. Why? Because it's very hard to raise a family of 3, 4, 5. Whether you're South Asian, you're third generation in or second generation. I mean, the first generation, the people that are coming quickly, they may not see it. But if you want a quality of life, I mean, I'm an attorney, I have a standard of living that I expect. If you want a quality of life, it's very difficult. But why? It's by design. It's not the South Asian or somebody else that's setting this up. It's a system designed to ensure that you have this feeder of new people always coming in, because the locals cannot reproduce because they're being exploited. And this system is designed in that way. Why is Canada always looking for trade abroad? Why can't we look at ways to be self-sufficient? I mean, I see America looking at it. I'm in America. America's looking at being self-sufficient. They're offering all these, incentives. Why can't we? I seen Russia's, I read some of Russia's articles. They're like, yeah, we're gonna incentivize people to have more children, tax credits, different ways. Maybe, your mortgage is forgiven if you have X amount of kids. Why don't we look at these policies for Canadians? But it's not, and it's never gonna be, because the ruling elite, the people in charge, have a plan. Like you said, 100 million, and they don't want Canadians. Even, for example, right? My parents were liberal. They came over. They came during Trudeau's father's reign, right around that time. Let's just say in the late 60s, early 70s. I'm presuming that's around the time that his reign was. And they blindly voted liberal. They didn't know. They didn't participate. They said, "Hey, liberals." I voted conservative. I mean, I've seen all the values. I consider myself center right. Guess what? The Canadian government doesn't want me either. They want a next cohort of people coming in who's going to vote liberal, who's going to enforce. So I'm not even the desired person. And that's why you have this. That's why this environment in Canada is such that you can't have 4 or 5 kids. I mean, you have car laws with car seats. Most people can't afford large cars, so maximum you have 2. I mean, this is by design. This is not spontaneous. It's not, wow, what happened? And these are the challenges that they don't want you, me, other Canadians. I see people in the chat. Some are nice, some are not. Right? I see some. They don't want you discussing this. They want you discussing whether I should be here. Should I go back to India? I mean, I'm born and raised in Canada, but it's a whole different scenario. But should I even be able to discuss this? Is this that? I mean, that's a waste of time. And our rulers are laughing at us. Let them punch to their left and to their right. No one punch up. And same with the idea of Khalistan, right? The Indians are pushing so hard with this idea that the Canadians say Sikhs are bad, Khalistanis are bad, you don't have a right to be here. And the Khalistanis spend their time defending themselves, saying, hey, we have a right to advocate under our charter rights. Who defines what is the freedom of speech? Who can say what, right? That's all their conversation should be. Not, hey, look, we want our independent country, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to hold a referendum, and we're going to move forward. And largely, that's what we're doing. But their hope is that we waste our time at basically like a dog chasing its own tail. That's all we do. You're this, you're that, I don't want you here. What are you going to do? People are here. How do we work together? And that's why I respect you, Pat. You said, look, the question is, how do we work together to get out of this situation? I remember the 90s. I remember the 80s. I grew up in Brampton. I saw everything. It was amazing. I was also living in Brampton when there's a flood of students, where my neighbor, who had, he was a Canadian family, he's been there for 20 years in that house, moved out, and it was sold to a realtor who then turned it into a rental property with 15 students parking their cars all over the grass, all over everything. And I mean, where's the city? Where are all these things that are happening, right? It's by design. And if we sit there fighting each other, I mean, we're not going anywhere. Like you said, Pat, you were on the front line in Ottawa. You saw Sikhs there. You saw everybody there. My family, and I'll just share this one story. My family became conservative, right? They're like, look, some of us are pretty well off. We're professionals. We make a sufficient income. And we look and say, look, we don't want to pay all these taxes. This is absurd. How are we doing this, right? This is not fair. So we are becoming more conservative as a community, the ones that are born in Canada. Now, one of my family members was at a bank in Brampton, and this lady came in, And the lady's like, "Oh, it smells in here." And my family member turned around, and she's also born and raised in Canada. She's like, "Excuse me?" And I don't think the lady who said it expected someone to speak English or even understand what was happening. And she was just shocked. And my family member's like, "Look, you're disgusting, right? Like the way you think is disgusting." But that member of my family walked away going, "You know what? They hate us. I don't even want to vote conservative. I want to vote liberal now, not because I believe in their policies, but because I think these people hate us. They want us all gone." And that is what people want. And I told her, "Look, this is what they want you to think. This is, that girl doesn't represent the conservative movement, the rights that are being, protected, in contrast to the rights that are being taken away by the liberals. So don't let that one incident taint your image of what's happening." But that is the goal. And there's so many people who have walked away. I mean, I know other people that donated to the trucker protest who later said, "You know what, I'm not going to do it. They call us cheats. I see some of those people, they make fun of us. We're not going to help them out." Who won? It wasn't the truckers. It wasn't the people at the bottom, as we are all not the decision makers in Canada. So who won? The elites, the people who sit on top of you. And this is the issue here. I mean, it's just,
Right.
We're not getting it. No one's getting it. And this is why Khalistanis are like, "Look, we're advocating for the right to self-determination. It's a legal right, right? It's a fundamental right." And Punjab, and just getting to the Canadian issue, right? Punjab becoming an independent country is beneficial for Canada specifically, because you can have a lot of people that, if you say we don't want these people here, a significant amount will want to make Punjab or Khalistan a functional state and would push and work there to do it and make it better. More importantly, now India is a nuclear power state, right? India now has the ability to threaten its neighbors, even threaten Canada. I mean, they have nuclear missiles. How do they get them? Well, in the 1960s, it was Canada that built nuclear reactors for India under the promise that India not develop nuclear weapons. So the Indians are like, "Hey, listen, we don't know how to build this stuff. We don't know how this works. Can you help us? We need energy." And the Canadians are like, "Well, yeah, hey, if you promise not to make weapons, we'll make them, And the Indians are like, "Yeah, of course, we're not going to make them." Boom. Canadians make nuclear power plants in India, and then India kicks out the Canadians and makes weapons. So the question is, how does this impact Canada? Well, had Sikhs been in Canada showing you and explaining to you the deceptive nature, the broken promises, the dangerous state India was, perhaps we wouldn't have done it. And perhaps the South Asian continent would not be nuclearized right now. And if a nuclear exchange between Pakistan and India does happen, it's going to impact us. It's going to ruin the environment for all of us, right? So this is how these things impact us. We're not this isolated island that no one can reach. Weapons can reach all of us. But Canada built that from India. And now India said, "You know what? Too late. We're going to make weapons." And here we are with a nuclear-armed India as a result of Canadian nuclear technology. And it's very dangerous to us.
Dangerous to us as Canadians.
Yeah.
You kind of got me on that one. That's wow. That's crazy. I didn't know that. I didn't know that they were making nuclear grade weapons.
Oh yeah, they're nuclear power, and as a result of Canada in making nuclear power plants for them, because the Indians said, yeah, guys, we promise no nuclear weapons for us. We promise. Wait, where are we?
Oh, I got to get to this one. Oh my God, this is the biggest super chat I've ever had, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, $139.99. We in our generations will always be grateful to Canadians. We can pay it back. I am from India. We all want Khalistan. Harsh deep. Thank you so much. Wow. I'm sorry. Thank you. That goes directly to lawyer fees, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to get a shameless plug in there, as you see, guys. PatKingAppealFund@gmail.com. That's for my lawyer fees for my appeal. If you guys want to give us a hand. At this part of the segment, I want to move forward with, if you're okay, if you have anything else you want to add.
Nope, I'm okay. I mean, you can even bring up people, Pat. I mean, I don't mind. I like to speak to people.
It's a struggle to bring people up.
Okay.
But what we're going to do, guys, super chats, you're going to get priority. So super chats in YouTube and starred chats if you're sending stars. Anybody have any questions for Jay? And ladies and gentlemen, we're keeping it respectful. But Jay is offered himself to, this is something I don't do, but to answer some of your questions. And I want to touch one question right now first that I saw in the chat. What about Naheed Nenshi? Naheed Nenshi has nothing to do with it. Naheed Nenshi is actually an Ismaili Muslim. So for those that are asking who Naheed Nenshi is in Calgary, he's a Ismaili Muslim.
I have no idea what that is. Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
He's from Tasmania, or sorry, Tanzania.
Okay, I can't even answer that. So yeah, I wouldn't know. I apologize.
So no worries. I Googled it while we were talking, but you're very informative. Jay is very well educated. Jay, can you talk on any of the stuff as we got questions coming in? Do you know any about the, shit. Marianne gave me a $50 super chat with no comment, but thank you so much. To you, Jay, do you know any involvement with the CIA in India and what the CIA is doing? Or any information, or what's the rumors that you might know and speculations or anything?
Look, I mean, the Americans are at this point in conflict with obviously the Russians and in large extent the Chinese and the Indians, the Brazilians, the Chinese, the Russians are making a bloc called BRIC, right? So you see this back and forth tug. India always, being India, tries to walk the middle, doesn't promise too much, kind of shady on both sides. No one knows who can trust it. And now Trump is actually putting a lot of pressure on India. He's like, look, pick a side. I mean, if you want to be on that side, go on that side. If you want to be on our side, be on our side. I mean, we're with the West. So tell us where you want to be. And India is finding it very difficult right now. So the Indians accused the Americans of interfering in their election, which caused Modi not to have a majority. Now he has a minority government, but he has to work with people. Nevertheless, I mean, it's like a back and forth tug. The Americans don't want India to purchase Russian oil, and they've said it. The Indians continue to do so and kind of say, hey, listen, we're going to do what we want. And that's where we are with the Americans and the Indians at this stage. And obviously the attempted assassination of Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, the case that's going through the courts in the Southern District of New York, that's a big, big issue because it implements Modi's inner circle. So they're trying to see how they can bury this case and kind of squash the Khalistan issue. Even with Canada, with Carney, they're like, look, we won't raise Khalistani issues. You guys drop this whole idea that we're doing all this crime in Canada, and that's what Carney's kind of doing. So you see this whole realignment happening, and you see the Americans, trying to figure out how they can position themselves in a better spot.
Right. Would you the Sikh religion, is it Christian? Is it a Christian religion?
So now there's a lot of, so getting back, so Guru Nanak Dev Ji was the guru who started the Sikh religion. Now I've heard this rumor, and I don't know how likely it is, but anyways, so Guru Nanak Dev Ji went around the world. He went to the Vatican, he met with the Pope. I mean, I think there's documentation of it, but he went around the world back in those in the 1500s, going around the world, right? And someone said this to me, and I don't know. They said, look, the way that the Protestants, through Martin Luther, implemented changes in the Catholic religions, in the way Christianity was practiced, saying that, look, our relationship is not through a priest. Our relationship is with God directly. I mean, we don't need these intermediaries that define what it is. No, it is, you and God. Those are the fundamental values that Sikhism taught. Sikhism said, look, we're not going through the Brahmin, the caste. We, as Sikhs, directly communicate with God. We don't believe in all these rituals. So some people have said, are Christians similar to Sikhs? I mean, Sikhism is a completely distinct religion, but there are a lot of interesting parallels to some of the values that the Protestants had in regards to not having rituals, not having all these things, but going straight to God yourself, not through intermediaries. So there are similarities in that.
Okay, so next question I want to say, who runs the banking industry in India? Do you know?
I'm presuming it's the Indians. It's not Sikhs. And even getting to the point, I mean, you got to understand, right? So let's just say we're Canadian, right? And you are of European descent, right? I'm of South Asian descent. We're Canadians. Mark Carney is of European descent. Right? Now, do you believe that Mark Carney, because he's of European descent and he's Canadian, he's looking out for European descent interests? No.
Yeah.
He would say no, right? I mean, he's doing what he wants. So I don't believe the Sikhs are in control in any way. I wouldn't know who's in control. But even let's just presume hypothetically there was a Sikh. It doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, it's the same as saying, hey, look, there's a white guy that's running Canada. So that means he's looking out for white guys. It doesn't work that way, right? I mean, it is what it is, right?
Right. Somebody just said Reserve Bank of India. So somebody was saying all religions are the Sikhism believes if you are a good Hindu, be a good Hindu. If you are a Muslim, be a good Muslim. We don't believe in conversion.
Exactly. We don't. We say that people should be free. I mean, Sikhism actually went to war. So our ninth guru was martyred by the Muslims because he tried to stop them from converting Hindus into Islam. He said, look, what you guys are doing is unjust. And if you think you can convert people by the sword, convert me, right? And obviously they martyred him. He became he was a guru and he was martyred. And then, that's our philosophy. You got to stand up for, like I said at the beginning, it is a sin to do wrong. It's a bigger sin to let wrong happen. I mean,
exactly.
You cannot let it happen.
I'm just going to put it out there. Guys, fire your questions off. I figured you guys, 1,450 people in here, plus YouTube, plus X and everything. You figure you guys would have a lot more questions than this. One of my biggest ones is, is there a patriarchy in the Sikh religion? Is there a matriarch, a leader in the communities and stuff, or no?
I mean, so we do have what's called the Akal Takat Jathedar, which is a seat that we turn to, but that is, I'm not an expert in Sikhism to qualify, but my understanding, and again, I could be wrong, he is more of a leader for the community in a way that we come to a consensus. We have what's called a Sarbat Khalsa. We make decisions, all the whole community, and then we get people like the Jathedars to implement those decisions. Now, for Sikhs, your relationship in the religion aspect is directly with God. You don't have a middleman. You don't have a priest. You don't have a person that divides you and God, and you got to speak to this priest, and then it gets to God. No, none of that. You are with God. You and God. That's it. That's all it is, right? So you go directly with God.
Right. So Greg Wycliffe asks, Jay, what do you think of the World Sikh Organization?
I know who they are. I mean, they are an organization that started in the 80s. We don't work with them. I'm from Sikhs for Justice. They do their own thing. They're not really in focusing. I mean, even though most of the media says that they're not really on the front line of Khalistan. They're not really front and center. They're not there. They're more into politics in Canada and civil rights of Sikhs, I guess, specifically and generally. Though, I mean, what happened during the trucker protests, like I said, we were on the trucker side and others may have been on the government side, right? And it is what it is.
Okay. What are the conditions for a group of people to have claim over land for sovereignty under the United Nations?
Well, we have to fall into the definition of peoples, right? So peoples have a right to self-determination. And who are peoples? Well, there's many different ways to look at it. And one of the ways is that, look, do you have a distinct language? Do you have, a distinct culture? Do you have a history of governing that locality? Are you indigenous to that area? Do you have a distinct language? And when you have those distinct things that make you a peoples, then you have the right to self-determination under international law. And we say, look, Sikhs we have a distinct religion, a distinct language, a distinct history. Even now, contemporary history, the Indians interpret contemporary history completely different than Sikhs interpret it, right? The Indians believe Sant Jarnail Singh was a terrorist. We believe he was a saint. He had a right to defend the Akal Takat. The Indians say 1984 Sikh genocide were riots. When we say no, this matches the definition of genocide. So even contemporary history, we have different interpretations of it. So we say we're distinct peoples, and as peoples, we have a right to self-determination under international law.
Okay. Big question here, and I know this, but I don't. This just come in. Volunteering and how you guys give back to the community. Can you speak on that?
Sure.
And how I mean, like I know myself because I was a part of it. I went with Calvir and the guys, and we went down to Toronto. And just if you can speak on your practice of it.
So Sikhs believe in the concept of seva. That means you must give back. It's a duty to give back to the community, right? So our temples or gurdwaras are community centers as well as places of worship, right? And I think churches used to be that as well, right? People would come and discuss what's happening in the community. It was like a community center as well, right? And that's what the gurdwaras are. So at the gurdwara, people do voluntary service and they give free food. But that concept is wider than just in the temple. So we do it all over as much as we can, right? I mean, what's feasibly possible. So you have a duty as a Sikh to do seva. It's called selfless service. You must do it without the intent to reach financial or other benefits. It is a selfless service. And that in itself, I mean, it benefits your soul. It benefits you. It grounds people. I mean, for example, you went and gave free food. Somebody who's living, let's just say, a really good life, has all the, say, material needs. When you naturally will have problems, and you'll start to think your problems are very big. And oh, my life sucks. But when you go to those places and you help people, you realize what you have. So in a way, it's therapeutic to do those things. So I think selfless service is very important.
I want to give an example. So, ladies and gentlemen, I was witness to this because I was there. It was right before my sentencing for my trial, and I was invited to take the train from Montreal to Toronto, and I got to go to the temple with Calvir and the boys, and Calvir brought me to a Raptors game, and then I went down, I believe it was Sunday morning, I went down to practice Siva, do you call it Siva?
Seva, yeah.
Seva. And I went down with the guys, and we were handing out socks and gloves and toiletries and pizza to these guys, to the I guess the homeless community, the drug addicted community, and I'm talking rough. Okay, I'm talking rough part of Toronto, and I watched these gentlemen giving out service, giving out pizzas to these downtrodden, and the cops were harassing us, and the cops were trying to give us a hard time, and there was almost a fight between the cops and the gentleman that was practicing seva. And I couldn't believe how the cops were trying to harass these guys for feeding the homeless. It was mind-boggling, and Calvir can attest to that, and Gary can attest to that, and the guys who I was with, they can all attest to this. I was absolutely blown away at how this was, and I was like, I couldn't believe that this happened to you guys. So I want to say, like, ladies and gentlemen, when I talk about this stuff, I tell you, I've learned not everything, and I get called, and I'm gonna say it. And Gary, Jay even said, put in your poster, Pat. Put to all the Jeep lovers out there who want to come in and say this, because I get attacked, and I see Philip in here. He's already attacking me in the chats because I'm holding this conversation. There's a very big closed-mindedness people have when it comes to understanding people and understanding religions and understanding things. Before you can base an opinion on somebody, learn who they are, learn what they do, understand who they are, and then base your opinions off of calculated research and immerse yourself into that. And just figure it out. There's Calvir there. Yup, it was Moss Park. So Calvir puts it up. It was Moss Park. It's wild out there. And many charity organizers don't like to go there because of how dangerous it is. And it's bad. I'm not kidding. It's incredibly bad. And they took me down there to one of the roughest places I've ever been in my life. And I watched these guys selfless, absolutely selfless. And they were respected, and the people were grateful and so glad that people came to their area and helped them out. I just want to say, I think it's admirable and very admiring to see that in you guys. Another question I saw is, how are women treated in the Sikh religion?
So, like I said, Pat, women are supposed to be equal in every way, right? So during our conflicts with the Mughal Empire, women participated in fighting as well. I mean, we have unisex names, and it's so that people don't say a woman sees something heroic and it says, Harpal did this. Well, Harpal could have been a girl too. So that name is something that's inspiring to everybody, right? It's not just for a man. saying, hey, that's a man, a Harpal, I can be that. No, it's for everybody. So we believe all people are equal. You know, the way we believe religion, we say religions are different paths to the top of a mountain. I mean, some people take this path, some people take that path, but we're all going to the same spot. We all want to go to God, right? So Sikhism is the path that we take, but we're all trying to go up and reach God. And for women, equal. There's no differentiation. Now, you know, obviously there are different people who may have say, hey, no, this isn't right. But generally, from the Guru's teaching, women and men were equal. We have a unisex name system. We must be treated as the same. And that's why they also have garbans. I mean, they also wear garbans, right? So it's the same way.
Okay. I see another one. And this might be a touchy one. You can choose whether or not you want to answer it. How are the LGBTQ treated in your religion? Like people that are recognized as gay or bisexual or lesbian?
You know, this is a topic that wasn't really prominent before, right? I mean, I've never seen it. Like, I've heard of people being homosexual in Punjab, but it's not something that's been an issue where people wanted to marry or people wanted to do it. Let's just say first for the idea of transgender or hermaphrodites. I apologize if I pronounce it wrong. There is a class of people that we, you know, people that are born with same or two sexual organs, right? So you know, we accept that, right? There are people that are there, but it's never been a pressing issue in our community. It's more of an issue in the West, and now it is something that people discuss. So I'm not knowledgeable about it. I don't know exactly how or if even there is a position on this matter. But I mean, it's never been an issue for us up until in the West. I mean, just like Christianity. I mean, I don't think Christianity had to deal with it until this became a front and center issue in, let's just say, the mid-2000s, and every year since became more prominent, right? I don't remember in the 90s or 80s. You know, we used to do Lord's Prayer in public school back then. I never saw anything about homosexuality or any of those things back then.
Yeah, and Harjeet says, we neither promote particular type of sexual orientation, nor do we oppose it. We accept everybody every way, and this is something I kind of, once it came off my lips, I was like, I know the answer to this. It's everybody is accepted no matter what. And a lot of people. I got one here. You can choose to answer it or not. This guy's spamming it, but he says Jay was in India's terrorist list before. Has he been removed or still on the list?
I mean, provide a list. I don't know, right? And second of all, I mean, India says half their politicians are terrorists. I mean, the BJP calls half the country terrorists. So I mean, I don't know, possibly. So what do you want me to do with that, right? What I will say is I'm a licensed attorney in Canada, in the United States. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I have no criminal record. I mean, it is what it is, right? India can say Christians shouldn't be allowed to practice Christianity in India. Does that make that right or lawful? Of course not.
Right. I guess one of my other questions would be, why the name Singh? Why does everybody carry the name Singh?
So there's two reasons. The Singh means lion in Punjabi, so it means that you're a brave person. But again, like I said, Hinduism believes in caste, right? So you have low caste, medium caste, upper caste. And the way you define who's in those castes is by your last name. So your last, like for example, now I've used my last name. It says Grewal. What that means is I'm a Jat. That means I'm a landowner. I'm a farmer back home. My family comes from a farming caste, right? And so when Sikhs started saying, no, we're all Singhs. There's no Grewal, there's no Dylan, there's no Gill. We're all Sikhs and we're all Singh. So that there's no caste differentiation. So that's why a lot of Sikhs you'll see have, their last name as Singh, because they don't want to be associated with their caste, because they're like, don't judge me based on who I am. I mean, in Canada, it's not a pressing issue. No one's going to say, oh, Grewal, I guess you're a farmer, huh? I mean, I'm not, I'm a lawyer, right? So that's not a pressing issue anymore. But originally, the reason why we kept the last name Singh was so that there is no differentiation. We will be judged on merit, not on birthright.
Okay. One of the other ones I saw, and I don't know if this is even a question, what is the true meaning of Dylan?
I don't know. Yeah, I said Dylan is a last name. I mean, Dylan is a last name, so that's what I meant. I mean, I don't know if you misunderstood. So Grewal is a last name and Dylan is a last name. I'm just saying that Dylan would be also a Jat. But Saini would not be a Jat. I think they're another caste. I don't know. But I know they're not Jats. I think they're not Jats, at least. Let's just say that. So we didn't want to be going into this this belief of birthrights. We want to be judged on merit.
Okay. Question. I've got a question, and this is a good one. You're a Sikh member. How come you don't wear the turban?
Yeah. I'm not a
or how come your hair's not long?
Right. I'm not a practicing Sikh. I mean, so right, like there are people that practice Christianity, people that are Christian by identification, right? Hey, I identify as a Christian, right? Similar to myself. I don't practice Sikhism. It's a very, I guess, for me at least, very strict requirements. You got to wake up before sunrise. You have to do prayers. You have to do certain things. And for myself, I wasn't able to do it. And you know what? I'm not, but I identify as a Sikh.
Okay. Do the children get baptized when they're born? Or is there some type of ritual when they are brought into the world? Is there like a type of acceptance or welcoming into the world?
So we do baptisms when children, not for children, I guess, again, I'm not the best person to talk about Sikhism. I would be the best person to talk about Khalistan and the movement in Canada about it. But generally speaking, this is what I know. So I apologize to any of my Sikh viewers that are saying, oh, this is completely wrong. But from my understanding, no, they don't get baptized at birth. But when you do become Khalsa, when you wear the 5 Ks, then you're baptized into Sikhism. Then you go through a ceremony, and then you become a baptized Sikh. And then you have to wear the kirpan and all the 5 Ks.
Okay. Children have a naming ceremony at birth, I hear. Oh, shoot. Look at that. We got a super chat of $50. Thank you very much, Jatinder. Thank you so much. Your community is very blessed. I appreciate it, guys. Do Sikhs have to drink after the sun goes down?
I don't know. I've never. First of all, Sikhs are prohibited from drinking any type of intoxicant or doing any type of intoxicant. So we don't drink alcohol. But I mean, drinking water, I don't know about that. I mean, I used to live in Punjab as a kid. I went there to vacation. My grandfather used to drink fresh cow milk at night all the time. I mean, so I don't know, right?
Are your marriages pre-planned?
No, I mean, you know, and this is something, Pat, you said before, and I want to talk to. Look, the Sikh community is a tight-knit community, but we're not like siloed in. My wife is a Christian woman. I mean, my wife, she's not Sikh, she's not Punjabi, she doesn't speak Punjabi, right? So, you know, we're very open. We're a very open, accepting society, right? I mean, my parents, there's no issue with it. My parents were happy. My parents love her, right? So these ideas that, hey, look, you know, they're very insular. Yeah, the first generation is why? It's a language barrier, cultural barrier, religious barrier. They don't understand any of these. But when the children are raised in Canada, I mean, all those things melt away. My concern is that when you have prominent localities, like when I grew up in Brampton, it wasn't prominently Sikh. It was predominantly European, right? And that's who was predominantly there. Now it's predominantly Sikh. So I can't speak to how it is now, right? Are people having the same experience I had? But when I grew up in Brampton, I mean, you know, we played with everybody, right? We had a lot of friends. Like I told you, when I first moved to Brampton from Malton in '86, people were racist. And I don't blame them. They didn't know. They were kids, right? We're kids. Mm-hmm. Later on in life, they're my best friends. You know, usually, and I don't know now, but usually you stay in your same locality for your whole life kind of thing, right? You roughly on the same area. So I went to Greenbrier, Jefferson, Greenbrier, Chinguacousy. Those are all the schools in that J section area, and I'm sure people from that area will know. We all grew up together, best friends, right? The same thing. So it's not as if it's a thing that makes us, no, you know, we only stick with our own. It's not the case. I mean, growing up, and I don't know if you grew up with South Asians or Punjabi Sikhs, it's not the case. We grew up with everybody together. Best friend was a black guy, Drew. I mean, I don't want to say his last name, but, you know, I was at his wedding, right? Like, grew up together. It was just an amazing time back then in Brampton.
So, Cal, we're putting you on the spot. What are your thoughts on the mandates the government brought in during COVID time, and do you see the government doing it again?
So I was against the mandates. I mean, me and Clavier, we went to demonstrations together. I was against it because it was very draconian. I mean, you had to have passports. You couldn't have interprovincial travel unless you're given this certificate. You couldn't get on planes, on just trains. It was crazy. What really hurt me, I mean, so at that point, I was going, I was a lawyer at that point, and I was looking at the law and the Canadian Charter. So we had done a demonstration at that time, right? And it was a car demonstration, but we came out, and I'll never forget this. This cop came up to me and he's like, "Hey, who's doing this demonstration?" And normally we communicate with the cops. We always identify ourselves. We're like, "Hey, officer, we're doing this demonstration. If you need anything, let us know," right? So, I identified myself. He's like, "This isn't allowed." And I'm like, "Well, it's a charter, right?" He's like, "No, the charter's been suspended in that part." I was dumbfounded. I'm like, wow. And then, I forgot my, civics class and
the notwithstanding
right.
clause.
Yeah, right. No, it was during an emergency, you can suspend portions. And who defines emergency? Now, you contrast that with the Americans' Bill of Rights, completely different document, right? And that's when I started to look at things, right? Canadians, we are subjects of the crown, right? America, and someone I saw in the chat who said this, but America's concept of rights come from natural law. It comes from God, right? These are God-given rights. These are the crown given, right? And those things really shook me. And I'll never forget that moment when the cop's like, "Yeah, no, charter's suspended, buddy." Like, wow, that's it? Like, this is
just like that.
Yeah, just like that, right? I was like so dumbfounded. So yeah, I'm completely against that. I think people should have a right. I mean, it was really interesting. My body, my choice, and then all of a sudden, it's your body, my choice, right? And I'm against that. I think, irrespective of whether you've gotten the vaccine or not, that's your decision. It's a personal decision. You shouldn't force or intimidate or coerce people into doing it.
100%. So, as a human, and do you advocate for human rights, or do you work human rights lawyers as a lawyer?
Well, I worked at the United Nations for an internship.
You did? You
worked
for the United Nations?
In Geneva, Switzerland, at the Human Rights Council. Yeah, in Geneva, Switzerland, under the Human Rights Council office.
Oh boy, this is a whole nother. We're gonna go. I got questions for you now.
Yeah, no, I got time. Don't worry. So I worked there, but it was not so. Again, United Nations is two. There's one in America, in New York, and then there's a Human Rights Council in Geneva, Switzerland. Right. So I worked with the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, and like I saw everything. I saw special procedures, and special procedures are, so for example, if you are in a country where you're being persecuted by your state, you can send an email to the United Nations and special procedures, and you can explain, hey, this is what's happening to me. And the Sikhs at that time, there was a guy who was being tortured in Indian custody. He's a Sikh, and then they utilized special procedures to get it. Then the UN writes a letter to the nation state, in this case it was India, and then India didn't respond back, but it kind of got the ball rolling that, hey, we can't torture this guy, it's becoming an international issue, and then we got word indirectly that they stopped, right? It wasn't as bad a situation as it was before. So, I worked in those situations as well, so I've seen how, again, my experience is a sliver of what the UN really is and how big it is, right? So I did work in there for a while.
Okay, so I got the super chat questions. I'm asking the super chat questions. If you are sending super chat questions, Sweet Nostrils, I did ask your question, so I still have it starred up here. Sweet Nostrils, he said absolutely not. You may have missed it. Jay, on the record, would you oppose any foreign or intelligence-linked interference in the Khalistan activism in Canada, even if it benefited your cause or clients? Jay?
100%. The Khalistan movement is an indigenous movement run and supported by people of Punjab and that are in all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's another one? How are women? Oh, sorry, I'm back into that chat room again. I don't know. You guys got any more questions? No other questions? Come on, let's fire them off, guys. Let's fire them off. I have enough. So being in the United Nations, when you see these agendas that are coming out, the United Nations Agenda 2030, United Nations Migrant Compact, you see Canada adopting these policies.
I see Canada on the forefront of it. I mean, Canada is one of the leading proponents of these things. But if you want to get into so this is outside of Sikhs for Justice, this is outside of Khalistan, this is my own personal experiences and my own thing. Yeah, there is a complete intention to de-industrialize, destroy power, and by destroying, like they say, hey, those who control food control people, those who control energy control countries, right? So destroying energy creation, depriving people of all these things. Yeah, it's 100% there, and it's bizarre because, again, these are the experiences I've had, right? So when I was at the United Nations, the people there are extremely left, and I remember this girl who said to me, right? Again, it sticks in my head. She was like, yeah, you know what? I want to create a world where, you know, we tell them what to do. We tell everybody what to do, and everybody will be happy. And then, you know, they'll get all this done. I'm like, all right, well, what's the difference between that and slavery? Right? Like, that's literally what you're saying. You want slavery globally, right? And then she looked at it, she's like, well, they'll get to reap the benefits of their production, right? Whatever. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. What if they don't want to do it? You're still forcing them to do, irrespective of what you say you're going to compensate them with. It's forced labor. And this is the mindset. A lot of people there. Now, again, I was at the lower echelons of the organization. I wasn't in any management or any senior position. These were interns that I worked with as well. So, you know, these were their personal opinions. But those were the people that I saw, because Geneva is a very expensive city and internships are not paid. So you only get a segment of society there. And those people are from, you know, elite backgrounds, families are rich, people can afford to be there. And they all are far left. And I was very shocked by what I saw there.
Next question I just got here for you. Can you speak to the Khalistani flag at the Sikh parades? Should foreigners be advocating for their country's rights in Canada? And how do you mix politics and religion?
So first, are foreigners allowed to advocate for different international issues? I mean, we will turn to international law. Canadian law, let's just say, forget international law. Canadian Charter of Rights, yes, foreigners are allowed. Canada advocates for what's happening in the Ukraine war. Canada participated and advocated for other international events. So Canadians have an inalienable right to express their political opinion on international matters. Now, the idea that Sikhs, let's just say, because it's predominantly Sikhs, but you will call them foreigners, advocate for Khalistan from abroad, you know, they should do it in India. Well, India has laws to bar that. If you are advocating for Khalistan within India, you risk being sentenced to life in jail. The Indians in 2024, I think, or 2025, around that, they changed their entire penal code. And they put on sedition laws. They said anybody who advocates for secession or challenges the territorial integrity of India peacefully through words, spoken means, doesn't matter, you face life in jail. So, I mean, it's a catch-22, right? Don't talk about Khalistan abroad, talk about it in India. You talk about it in India, you go to jail, and then you say no one's talking about Khalistan in India. I mean, it's illogical, right? So yes, what you define as foreigners, we would define as people who have an inherent right to express their opinion under the laws of Canada. Yes, they have a right.
Question from Henry Paul Gilbert. How can we correct our immigration policy? Should newcomers accept Canadian values and cultures?
100%. I mean, I was talking to you, Pat, about it. I have a family that's in Germany, and part of the process of becoming a German citizen, you have to take courses on what it means to be German. I mean, you have to take have an understanding of it, right? And yes, Canada should. The problem is, you know, Canada's not free. I mean, have we seen the oath that the prime minister must take when he becomes prime minister or she becomes prime minister? You are our prime minister. So our first minister, the person above us, takes an oath saying that I am a servant of the crown, of the king.
Of the crown, yeah.
So we are below a servant. So you and I are equivalent to less than a servant because our prime minister is a servant. So, I mean, you know, the issue is that you have these foreign powers for their own interests that manipulate Canada. Canada is not free to exercise sovereignty. Canada is not free to develop cities, right? We have all these foreigners that have come in, right? So let's just presume I identify myself as a Canadian because I was born and raised here. I identify those that have come after as those that are foreigners. They may be citizens yet, but I'm just generally speaking. Why isn't Canada building new cities? Why aren't we building new dams and having energy? Why are we looking at where we have natural gas and why don't we have a refinery in Canada? I mean, why don't we have these self-sufficient attributes? Colonial powers, what they used to do was they used to take raw materials from their colonies, bring it to Britain, let's just say, build it into something, and then sell it back to the colony. Now, what happens for Canada is we take the oil from Alberta, we send it to the US, they refine it, and they sell it back to us.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense, right? Like, so you know, it's sad, right? Because I mean, I want Canada to prosper, right? But it doesn't make any sense how we function as a society. So culturally, yeah. Now getting back to the question, right? Because there are cultural differences. You're bringing, let's just focus on Punjabi Sikhs, right? You're bringing in people that come in from predominantly villages, right? Some of them may come in from cities, but these are people from villages. Now, I don't know how many people have had experiences on being in a farm in Canada, right? But it's a rough and rugged life, right? You know, you don't have like this, like my life, like where, you know, I'm clean all the time. I have this, I comb my hair, I shave. You know, you don't have those luxuries. You're a farmer, you're working. When you bring in those people into cities, it's a different mindset, right? It's a cultural barrier, language barrier, and it's a way of life barrier. So there has to be a transition. There has to be courses, I think, where people understand it. And, you know, our community wants to do it too, where we explain, look, these aren't norms that are accepted here. These are norms that, you know, you don't do, but it is a process. It is something that has to happen. And yeah, I mean, Canadian culture, again, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. We had I remember all the cartoons. We used to have Christmas, i.e., you know, the say Coca-Cola Christmas, Santa Claus, Christmas tree, Merry Christmas, everywhere. I mean, I still say Merry Christmas. One can argue my wife's Christian, so there's a different level, but I had a Christmas tree, right? These are cultural norms that bind Canada. But if you, and I'm just as the ruling elite in Canada, suppress those. You say you can't say Merry Christmas. You say you can't do these things. You divide, you bring silos, right? How is someone coming from Punjab gonna integrate? He doesn't know. And all the TV now frowns upon, no, it's happy holidays. What, right? Like, you don't have a binding thread. You don't share a language. You know, there are children who are born here. They will be able to be integrate like myself, but you don't have that binding thread. You don't have something that everybody can agree to. And should Canada, you know, have a culture that they push? 100% they should, 100%. And it doesn't mean that we diminish our culture. I mean, again, like I said Lord's Prayers in school. Am I Christian? No, right? It doesn't mean anything. But did that instill values? I still remember some parts of it. Hey, we share bread as they share with us. You know, I remember those things. But it didn't make me lose my identity. It didn't make me gain an identity. It made me have, you know, respect for Canada. And I had, you know, Easter, we had Christmas, Halloween. One may argue these aren't Christian customs, that's fine, right? But they became Canadian customs. These were things that we looked forward to. You know, trick-or-treating with our friends. Now no one does it. I mean, it's in some parts, I would say no one does it. It's sad. There should be a push of culture.
What's your view on Canadian gun ban?
Completely against it. Completely against it. I think it's completely horrible. It's dangerous. You know, it's something that is, you know, I'm in the States now, right? So as you said, I got this job opportunity. I took it. So I'm here and I see the gun culture here. And I think it's correct. Law-abiding citizens. I mean, even from a Sikh perspective, we work at bonds precisely for the purpose of standing up against injustice. Law-abiding citizens should be permitted and should have a fundamental right and a natural law, you know, given by God, is to say a right to defend themselves and others. And I'm completely against it. I think we should be allowed to carry firearms when we walk around. I mean, it is something that is a right. For example, I'll give you a story. Right? I was in the States when the police chief of Toronto said, "Hey guys, look, you know, these criminals are stealing your cars. You know, don't make it hard. You know, just put your keys, maybe some cookies and milk by the door and just say, please take my car," right? Yeah. And they won't come into your house. That's the police chief in Toronto. And at the same time, I was in the States at that point. In Florida, there was a home invasion where the invader got shot, but the person who shot him didn't come forward. And the police chief in that location said, listen, to the person who shot this person,
We want to say you're not in trouble. We have nothing. We're not going to charge you. You did a great job. The only thing we would advise you is to take shooting lessons. So next time you shoot, center mass. I mean, this is the contrast was just dumbfounded, right? I shared it with my family in our WhatsApp group saying, look, these are the rights. This is what free societies are. You should have it. And I hear about now, people are asking for a castle doctrine. That is, your home is your castle. I'm for it. I think every Canadian should have a right to defend themselves. It is unacceptable that you rely on law enforcement. And I have law enforcement friends who themselves say, yeah, once we finish this job, we got to give in our firearms. And some people may come after us. And, we want to have a right to carry firearms too, after our job is done. So, I'm for it. I think firearm rights are necessary.
You speak, and that's funny that you say that because an incident just happened in Calgary last week or a week and a half ago or whatever. And a young lady was showing a home and a man tried to assault her and he attacked her and was trying to do pretty disgusting things to her and she protected herself. And the memes going around right now is that Toronto chief of police saying, open your doors, leave your doors unlocked, leave your keys at the front door. And then you got the Calgary one saying she defended herself. The guy unfortunately passed away. He lost his life and there will be no charges laid. Congrats. It's a contract. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is another prime example of how our governments in Canada are having us all fight each other across the nation from coast to coast. As you have the Toronto city, this is an example, the Toronto chief of police arguing, saying to open your doors, let the robbers take your keys. And you have not even 3 provinces over, 2 provinces over. You've got them saying, no, protect your family, protect your loved ones, and, defend your home. This is the disconnect that Ottawa has instilled in Canada. It's the same kind of disconnect that the Sikh community has experienced in India, between Indians, Hindus, Muslims, and Sikh members. These people have learned and have experienced these events. We can learn a lot, and I think people need to start becoming more open-minded and not being. And I'm going to admit, okay, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to admit it. I was very standoffish, and I'll give you my example. And to the Sikh members in the chat, I want you to understand this. And this is where it came from. I'm an occupational health and safety professional. So in my field of work, my duty is to keep the workers safe and be able to go home every night after work. Make sure they get to see their loved ones. One of our parts of our industry is PPE, personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment to us is a hard hat. Okay, so to a hard hat, it is when the Sikh community, and please don't take this the wrong way, they manipulated our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it states, and now this is where we learn later on down the road, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms isn't worth the paper it's printed on. We find out a lot of things about this. So I was naive, and back in the day, I was arguing and fighting with these people saying, I don't care. That's part of your religion. It's part of my job to make you put on a hard hat. Then it went to the motorcycle helmets. And then the motorcycle helmets, we learned that even in India, you must wear a motorcycle helmet in India. And you must take your turban off. So we couldn't understand the contrast between what was happening. So we started to protest wearing the helmets in Canada on our motorcycles. The Sikh community was able to manipulate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to make the laws bend so that they didn't have to wear a helmet. So we figured, all right, under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms here in Canada, no race, religion, ethnicity, or creed or color is treated differently under the law. So when we started to stand up for our rights to not wear a helmet on our motorbikes, we were nailed with tickets after tickets after tickets. So we finally got it in front of a judge. We finally got it in front of the court, and he said, yes, you don't have to wear a helmet if you don't want to. And we were like, okay, great. But you must get a doctor's note saying why you can't wear a helmet. So we're like, well, shit, we'll find any doctor to do that so we don't have to wear a helmet. To me, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'll always wear a helmet, but it was the thought behind it. I think you should always wear a helmet. But the doctor's note then forced the license bureau to revoke your Class 6 motorcycle license because now you have a medical condition. You can't operate a motorcycle. So I got very frustrated, and I was like, son of a bitch, man, like this is wrong. You can't be manipulating our laws in Canada to appease your religion. It's stated in our charter, but then we learned that the charter has never been ratified. Quebec never signed on it. Statute of Westminster stands, and a lot of follow. So now I'm starting to understand. So to the Sikh religion, to the Sikh members, I apologize for being naive to that fact. You have to understand where we came from back in 2015, 2014, 2013, when we were standing up for this. We were in a different mindset. So I've learned a lot from this. I learned a lot, getting an understanding from the community and stuff. So I really appreciate it. I hope everybody in the chat has.
So I'll say something now, Pat. First of all, the first time I went to Texas, right, I saw all these motorcycle riders without helmets, and I was kind of dumbfounded. I asked the person, I'm like, hey, what's going on? They're like, yeah, they don't need to wear it. I'm like, but they're like, yeah, they just pay a little bit more insurance to cover the cost, and that's it, right? If you don't want to wear it, pay more insurance, you don't have to wear it, and that's freedom, right? That's freedom. Now, the Sikh argument has always, forget the idea of it's a charter right, it's a religious right? And we'll put that to the side. But what the Sikhs have said is that, look, when we fought in World War II for the British Empire, we said we're not going to wear a helmet. No one had an issue. Everybody said, go on the front line, don't wear a helmet, as long as you fight, right? And we were willing to go on the front lines to defend Western, say, values, or the British Empire at that time. These are values, and that's what once Winston Churchill said too. He said, look, in Britain, when the dispute was going on, should Sikhs wear turban helmets or not, they said, look, if he's willing to go to war without a helmet, what's the problem if he doesn't wear it when he rides a motorcycle? But now, what's interesting is, and some of my Sikh friends might have issue with this as well, but if you look at when the Sikh kingdom was around, right, you look at some of the armors, there were helmets that had a spot for the turban, and it was metal, and then it had the metal mace, or I don't know what it's called, it's like a chainmail all the way down, right? So it was a helmet. It had a little spot for the juda, where we have our hair in a round bun, and it was metal. Now I wasn't, and I'm not still sure. I'm like, so did they wear turbans over that, or did they not have to? Because obviously they're protecting their heads from swords, right? That's why you made that helmet in the way that it was. But the issue right now, right, and this is where you see all this, I would say, stubbornness, or I would say, defensiveness. The Sikh religion is at the front line of India's attempts to demolish our identity, right? So the Indians want to get in and start to change aspects of our Sikh religion. They want to say, hey, change this. This is to make it more part of Hinduism, right? We don't believe in caste. No, now you do, right? Oh, no, you're this, right? So the Sikhs at this point in time, right, they're very steadfast. We're not changing it. Maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right, but we're not changing it, because once you open that door, it's going to be a lot of problems back home, a lot of problems everywhere. And that's where this whole thing is going. Now, I'll tell you a personal story. And this is a sad story. I knew a Sikh, and he was a personal friend of mine, more of an acquaintance, right, who fought for the right to not wear a helmet in Ontario, right? So now Sikhs don't have to wear a helmet when they wear their motorcycle. And shortly thereafter, he got in an accident and had brain injury. And it's sad, right? And it's something that, the question is, had he worn a helmet, would it have happened? Maybe not, right? So you see this, right? And it's sad, and it really concerns me. But I also see why the Sikhs are like, look, we want to change right now. Because the minute you open this door, the Indians are going to have a field day. They're going to say, hey, change this, change that. No, you can change this, right? But looking at our history, looking at the helmets during Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, I do see Sikhs wearing helmets. I see helmets, and it's online. You type in a Google search, you can see it, right? It's there. Now, why were they worn? They were worn obviously to protect the head from swords. We were warriors, right? So it is what it is, but that's the situation. And that's why the Sikhs are at this point in time, we're not free. We don't have control over our institutions, our religious institutions. Like I said, we have what's called the Akal Takht Jathedar. He's appointed through a system where the government of India is basically in control of it, or a government, right? So it's a very touchy point in time, and that's why everybody's very concerned that, hey, look, you don't want to change anything because we don't have the liberty to actually examine our history without interference from all these powers, the Indians, that will then change so many things that will completely change who we are as a people, and we don't want to get into this dispute, and that's where it is.
Well, it makes sense, and I can understand that. It's give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yep.
Kind of concept, right?
But look
And
at
after
Texas.
everything you've experienced, your culture's experienced, everything, it's when we don't bend the knee, and I can respect that. And I've learned, like I said, I've learned a lot for this. We're coming up onto the top of 2 hours, and I think this has been a very informative conversation. I really appreciate the community coming in here and helping the questions in the chat, helping that as well. Maybe we'll take one more question. Anybody got one more good question we want to fire off? And then maybe we'll sign out. I know it's getting late for us here, my friends and family that are out west. I know it's still early for you and all of that. But why Panan make a turn for Khalistan? Why Panan make a turn for Khalistan?
It's a long question, right? So Mr. Panoon is one of the members of Sikhs for Justice. He is the main person that the Indians attempted to assassinate in America, right? Gurpatwant Singh Panoon is his name, right? Now, I'm presuming the question is, why is he asking for Khalistan, right? I mean, that is what my understanding is. But I will get into a few questions, if you don't mind, Pat. I'll answer, because I don't think any... and I was hoping I would get these questions from some of the people that are,
Oh, okay.
But they never asked, so I'll answer some of these questions, right? So Mr. Panoon demands or tries to exercise our right to self-determination because Punjab and the Sikhs, and let's just say Khalistan was an independent country before, and we want to have that right again. I mean, it's a right that people have, and we want to exercise it. The Indians call it criminal, and hence the Indians don't allow us to exercise it in India, so we do it here. And that's why Mr. Panoon it's a fundamental right. It's the only way we're gonna get justice, because right now, members who ran and controlled death squads in 1984 to kill Sikhs are still in government. These guys are still in government. They're still in positions of authority. They've come to Canada under diplomatic immunity. These are people who have blood on their hands and who are running, death squads around India and Delhi, trying to kill as many Sikhs as they could, right? So these are people that, looking at them, it's injustice. They're free, and we're never going to get justice in India, and we want to have our homeland back. Now, some of the questions I thought people would ask is, hey, look, why are you guys doing these referendums in Canada, and it damages Canada's relationship with India, right? First, the referendums are an exercise to gauge the will of the Sikh population. Up until now, the Indians have been saying that, look, 5-6 Sikhs want Khalistan. Majority of the Sikh population doesn't. I mean, and then if you ask the Khalistanis, they'll say, 90% of the Sikhs want Khalistan, 5-6 don't. But no one's asked the Sikhs. So we said, hey, listen, let's just ask them. Why not hold these referendums, ask the people? And, I'll tell you, there was a lot of concern. A lot of Sikhs had concerns. Will people show up? Will people want to vote? What will happen? Maybe people don't want Khalistan, right? No one knew. And this is why the Indians are so upset, because the Indians govern through fear and making you doubt yourself. Kind of the way, let's just say any state. They want you to feel alone, singular, and not, sharing this with other like-minded people. Up until social media, that's how they control the populace, right? So when we did these referendums, hundreds of thousands of people showed up, lineups going everywhere, and it completely shattered their
narrative.
Yeah, that this is like five guys in a basement. Now, I keep hearing this, and this is a cause for concern for me, right? I keep hearing right-wing guys saying, yeah, we need a free trade agreement with India. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, let's just do some simple thinking. Materials cost the same, right? Equipment costs the same. Energy costs may be slightly different, right, in production, but generally they're the same. The only cost that's different is labor. Now, Canadians are going to take $30 an hour to make something. Indians will take 50 cents. How are you going to compete?
Right.
I remember prior to NAFTA, my mom, again, we were in Brampton, used to work at Spar Aerospace. Used to be on Williams Parkway and Airport Road. Spar Aerospace was amazing. My mom used to work there. As soon as NAFTA came, they went to Mexico, right? She started doing agency work, right? It was difficult, right? But we worked our way through it.
what will you do with a free trade agreement with India? How will you compete against their labor costs? Because your equipment costs, your energy costs are identical. It's only labor you don't pay for. You differ, sorry. And it's not in our interest. So I see all these people, yeah, Canada will prosper if we get this free trade agreement. We'll trade. Why? You have no idea what you're asking for. My mom lost her job during NAFTA to Mexico. You will lose. Why would a businessman, imagine I have a factory in Canada, the few that still remain. Now I can go make it in India. I can pay these guys pennies, right? And everything else is the same, besides maybe transportation, which is very little. Bring it over. That's it. Why do you think Trump put in all these tariffs? He said, look, this can't go on. We're being exploited. And what Canadian right-wingers who are so India this, India that. If you work in a factory, I mean, even lumber, right? Hey, we make lumber here. They have forests there, and they have less restrictive laws governing deforestation, governing equipment. I mean, what are you going to do? And I don't think people are looking at the detrimental effect. Or like I said earlier, why are we not looking at how to make Canada self-sufficient? Why is where is this idea that, hey, we need to have our own refinery? We need to build more energy. We have so much water. Let's build dams, build energy production. All this nonsense, like, let's put it aside, environment, all that. Let's put all that, let's look at building society, building a strong Canada that makes stuff that we want inside. Right now, the reason why Trump has all these tariffs is because he said people took advantage of our trade agreements. And today we have right-wingers saying we want to be taken advantage of. Why? I don't get it. It mystifies me.
Well, I know that we do have a few refineries here in Canada, on the East Coast here in Montreal and in Newfoundland, and I believe it's Nova Scotia. The Irving refineries out there, they're taking oil and gas from Russia, Iran, Saudi, all of those places. I do know that we have our refineries out west, but they don't have the capacity to be able to, produce for the whole country, just because of the limited amount of facilities that we have. Now, one of my suggestions is actually, if we're having such a hard time and our GDP in Canada is going so down under, why would we not want to invest in Canada for the next 10, 15 years, build refineries directly across Canada, put a pipeline east to west, take our resources, disperse it evenly across all provinces. In the refineries, each province has the ability to stockpile their resources so that they can keep their fuel costs low for their communities, or they can outsource resource or sell to market some of their resources to bring in money to build their infrastructure and put back into their communities. And for the next 15 years, 10, 15 years, we can build these facilities, and then we are no longer reliable on trade with any other country. We don't need you. We can make our own products here in Canada. We can make Canada made again, made in Canada again. Carney pitched that. We're going to focus on Canadian products. We're going to focus on building Canada back. This guy's over in China. He's working deals with China. He's working deals with India. He's working deals with anybody but Canada. And then he's destroying and dismantling our trade partner with the United States. He's intentionally trying to destroy it. And I do know that there is a bigger agenda, and not everybody is aware of that agenda, but what they've done here, ladies and gentlemen, and to the chat, is they have pitted us all against each other, so we can't focus on that. So we can't, oh, wait a minute, Carney did this, and they're doing this, and they're doing, no, they want you to say, yeah, fuck the Jeeps, you're a Jeep lover, Pat, you don't want to bring anything, you just want to do this, you want to do that. What I am doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is we are establishing community. And that's what this whole live is about. It's to establish the community within the community, to realize that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And not only are they my friend, we can learn a lot from what they've been dealing with. And if we help them, they help us. And that's just plain and simple. And that's smart economics in my mind. And for all those people out there, well, they're not these people. Go talk to them. Go to Temple. Go step foot in Temple. You're welcome there. Anybody can go in there, and I highly suggest, Jay. I really admire this conversation tonight. I've held on to 2,000 people in the live tonight, and that is a record. So I'm really thinking we kind of gave some good insight to people out there, and I want to speak to your community, to the Sikh community. Not all of us hate you, okay? And you'll find a majority of people in Canada, they're just uneducated, and they don't take the time to learn and reach out and understand for themselves. And to that, well, that'll be a barrier we're going to have to cross on another day. But Jay, I really want to say thank you, man, and I'm glad Calvert put us in touch with each other, because this has been really good. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Pat. And in closing, I'd say, the people who say they hate us, right? Like I told you, in grade 3, a lot of people called me back, and then the word was Packy, right? It wasn't G, right? So, a lot of people called me Packy. I was a new kid. I came from Malton. By grade 9, we're all friends. I mean, we're all together. Right? It wasn't this, hey, I hate you for life. So the people who hate us, I get it. I mean, look, there's this influx of people. You're not understanding what's happening. Jobs are gone. People are not communicating the way they used to. Cultural differences. Brampton is completely different than how most people remembered it. There's a fear it's going to happen everywhere. Totally get where they're coming from. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying they're right to just say, hey, I hate all of them. And I don't believe all Westerners or people of European descent hate us. I mean, I think the most rights, there's songs in Punjabi about the fact that we have more rights in Canada than in India, right? Like the respect that Sikhs have for Canada, it's beyond words. And it was not a country that gave us these rights. It was the people in that country. So there's a deep admiration, respect, love that's there, right? But at this moment, I mean, Pat, you're on point. Are you going to punch the guy to the left of you, to the right of you, who's exactly in the same boat as you? Or are you going to punch the guy on top of you, who's keeping you down? And the people on top want this fight between you and the guy next to you. They don't want you looking up. And that's fine. I mean, people will do it, and that's fine. Again, they're limited in their capacity to what they can really do. But for people like yourself, Pat, thank you. Thank you for taking this opportunity, opening up this conversation. And in the future, there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, our culture is conservative. We believe in conservative values. We are more conservative than, I would say, some even conservative people in certain attributes, right? But up until now, we have been liberal simply because people thought the liberals had our best interest. But when we saw families being destroyed, when we saw rights being diminished and continuing to be diminished, people don't want to vote that way. And that's why there's this push to bring in this new cohort that will be easily, swayed to vote liberal. We gave you visas, hey, hoodwink, now who are you going to vote for, right? And that is a selling point. And I'll tell you, it works. It worked on my parents for a whole generation, right? And that's why you saw Brampton being liberal for a generation until now, where it's starting to become conservative. It's going back and forth, right? So I think it's a great opportunity. And I mean, we agree. I agree with you. There needs to be change in our immigration policies. There needs to be change in many things in Canada. But the idea that Khalistan is a threat to Canada, that Khalistanis are destroying Canada, that India is the best thing to trade with and India is amazing. I mean, all these are just completely opposite of what's happening. And that's why I really wanted to have this conversation.
Well, I appreciate it, and to the community for coming in and help clarifying some of the things and giving us some insight. I want to thank to the community for coming in, to the Khalistani and to the Sikh community for coming into my chat. I really appreciate it. So, Jay, I just I got so much to soak up, but I want to say thanks. I'll drop you down, and maybe we'll pick up a number part 2 if you're interested in a part 2. Maybe we'll do a part 2.
Of course, yeah. But, whenever you're free, we'll do it, and maybe we can get more of the hard-hitting guys that may have questions. Perhaps they didn't know I was going to show up, right? I mean, I really do want to speak with some of them and see what their point of views are. I mean, obviously, if it's just, hey, you're a G, that's great. I mean, thank you, right? There's no real conversation. But some of their concerns, some people do have legitimate concerns. And these are the topics we can discuss and see ways to bridge and ways to address and get each other's positions on it. But I mean, I was hoping to get some of them today, but I guess, I guess.
Well, maybe people were a little gun shy, you know,
Yeah,
and they're just listening and soaking it all up. Maybe after this is done, we know questions always come after the conversation. You're like, oh shit, I should have asked this. And maybe they'll come in the chat later on. I'll keep up with it. So Jay Grewal, ladies and gentlemen, immigration lawyer, Canadian citizen, working in the United States. And Jay, it was a friggin' pleasure to have you in, man.
Thank you, Pat. It was amazing. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, we'll talk soon. Well, guys, that's an in-depth conversation with Jay Grewal, immigration lawyer, Canadian citizen, member of the Sikh community. I hope you guys got a lot of your questions answered. I know we didn't ask very much, but you know, this is one of the informative things that we have to do. We have to understand these people and understand where they come from and we have to be educated first and foremost. And we tend to take things at face value and we don't see or feel or listen with our ears. We don't listen with our ears. We only see with our eyes and we judge that way. We have to see with our eyes, listen with our ears. God gave us 2 eyes. He gave us 2 ears, but he only gave us one of these. And that is something that I think people need to learn and you got to understand. And I did this for a reason because you need to know who your friends are. And I say that very strategically. You need to know who the people are going to be when you need them the most. You need to know the community that's going to help when you need them. You need to know the community that's going to protect you when you need them. You need to know who your neighbors are. And you're going to need them soon. Because I am afraid that in this next chapter of Canadian history, it's going to get dark fast. And I want people to understand that I bring this education, this stuff for education purposes. I bring this for insight. I bring this for clarity. And I bring this so that you know. This was my show tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. To everybody who donated in the super chats, thank you so much. God bless you. I have never seen that yet, so that was the first time. So the super chats, man, you guys were awesome. Much appreciated. To everybody else, shameless plug again, Pat King Appeal Fund at gmail.com. That is for the appeal process that we're still going through as we fought for our rights, just like the Sikh community did. As we fight for our rights in Canada and we stand up to these oligarchs, to these governments that don't care about you and me. They just care about themselves. I am still in the fight. I'm still going. Appeal is set for May the 11th. I appreciate everybody coming in here and having their say. And I hope, what's that? Oh, Jamie's in here. Sorry, Pat, Khalistan is not Canada's problem. We have countless, that's exactly right, Jamie. And we didn't bring Khalistan's problem here. We came to give insight as to what the Khalistan was. And we've had many a conversation on this, Jamie, and I think maybe in the beginning of the episode you might have caught it. I don't know. The Khalistan problem is not here in Canada. What the Khalistan problem is they want their referendum. So when you see them on the streets and they're pushing the Khalistan, it isn't anything to do with Canada. It's a sign to show India and the Indians in India that they are a lot louder and they want their Khalistan and they want to go home. So once again, that was the show. Jamie, give me a call. We'll have a good conversation. I know it's going to be heated, but at the same time, I hope everybody got some clarity and I hope you guys got some insight. And I really appreciate you guys being understanding to the topic and being very, very well behaved in the chats. So don't forget who you are. Don't forget where we came from. And always remember, Canada is always number one in my heart. Always will be and always is. But who is Canada? Find out who your Canadian neighbors are.
Okay. What a great time, great discussion. It was lengthy. I was getting really engrossed in the verbal chat, which like the chat which was running on the side, and so I missed some parts. But but I think even the chat which was going up and down was very interesting, and yeah, and Jay kind of handled it very well. This is probably the second time I'm hearing him talk, and yeah, I'm kind of very impressed by the way he handled everything. Yep, coin is coming up. Um, I'm seeing Lucy after certain days. Lucy, you want to come up? A lot of interesting stuff happening in the world, and maybe you're busy somewhere. That's fine. Yeah, maybe we can discuss for a couple of minutes before we wrap up. Coin, did you get any points? Anything you liked? Anything you didn't like?
It's an interesting platform. I've never heard of Pat King's YouTube channel. I thought he was pretty fair and very respectful to his guests. I think he presented it as neutrally as he could, which is, I think, it's a really good side as a host to do that. And it was interesting noting the types of questions that were asked because it's for a particular, I think, subset of the community. And I think they're worth noting as well because from just sort of the summary of it, I think there is an interplay in, like I said, I think in another space that, like what Pat said, it's important to understand different communities and your neighbours because it's your aligning of values, because there's much discussion about how similar or dissimilar is Sikhi to Christianity, for example. The ideology, I think it would have been nice if they unpacked the ideology of Hindutva a little bit more. I think just a bit more clearly, because I think that gets lost in a lot of the discussion because that's the genesis behind all of this, right? As in why is the Indian state persecuting, going after all non-Hindus, but particularly Sikhs, is because they are the most vocal and they're faith-bound to stand up against tyrannical, rulers, whether it's the government, etc. So I think that's something that, particularly those that are in the convoy movement can align with. So I think that's very smart strategy, to find out whose values align with yours and imposing. There was a really interesting discussion. I think others could probably touch upon things that maybe stood out to them. But it was just my sort of general observation.
Yeah, I think what stood out to me, Coin, was this point that Jay was making, that there are probably 2 or 3 different types of Sikhs in diaspora. There's one which are born here, and then there's one who are recent immigrants. That's probably a category I am in, and they can take a different way of looking at things, and I think that's a point I'm kind of appreciating more and more as I interact with you guys. Like my way of looking at things, while it is not totally different, I think at the core the concepts are similar, but the style that we approach the communication, and maybe at a finer level, some of the priorities are different. So I'm kind of I think we need more people like Jay who can talk to Sikhs who are born here. I think it's very important because we have a lot of Sikhs like me, who are born in Punjab and then have moved here. That community is very aware about India and what's going on. But I think we need more outreach to this segment. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you should do more. You should go and talk in different podcasts. The other really good speakers here, I'm saying, Squamish, Lucy, AK, Rich, JSK. JSK is probably in my category. And so you guys should kind of appear you should also go on this spot, and you don't have to show your identity or face. What do you think about that? Do you think you guys can do more there?
Yeah, Coin cheti lawyer ban ke na podcast aan te shamal ho gaye.
You gotta sponsor her. Let's make her an attorney, eh? Yeah, let's do it. Everybody pitch in 10,000. Let's send her to school.
I think she's known by everybody now. Her profile is pretty famous.
She's banned in India. Harjeet, are you banned in India as well?
Man, banned India. Let's they're
Half
having
of
sleepless
America,
nights.
you know how many white American accounts are banned legally in India? Just my account was banned in India because I was talking about the H-1B visa. So it doesn't take much to be banned there. So yes.
Yeah, ਨਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਾਉਂਸਲੇਟ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਕਾਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਸਮਥਿੰਗ ਅਦਰ ਵਨ ਗਾਈ ਹੂ ਕਾਲਡ ਮੀ ਅਪ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੇਰੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ 26 ਕੇਸ ਨੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਫੋਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਚਾਈਲਡ ਟ੍ਰੈਫਿਕਿੰਗ ਗॉड ਨੋਸ ਐਡੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਲਿਸਟ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਸੁਣਾ ਸਿੱਟੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ and then I called the FBI. I said these guys are, I checked the number, okay, this guy was and I could make out, okay, he's not a scammer, okay. The guy who called me was actually the defense attaché in the Washington DC. I could make out when somebody's talking ke fauji hai ki nahi hai, our way of talk is there are certain things you can make out. ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਇਹ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਮੈਂ ਅਗਲੇ ਦਿਨ FBI ਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਦੇਖੋ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਐਂ ਤੰਗ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜੀ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਓਕੇ ਕੰਪਲੀਟ ਲੈ ਲਈ and lo behold after a couple of weeks not even like 2 weeks, I think it was just 1.5 week, the Indian embassy kind of issues a clarification that there are some scammers who are using our phone number to call people, it's not us. ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਯਾਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਮਤਲਬ ਜੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਚ ਇੰਨਾ ਵੀ ਗੁੱਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਖੜ ਜਾਓ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਦੇ ਜਸਟ
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਭਾਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ ਦੀ ਸੀ ਕੀ
ਹਾਂ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ ਦੀ
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਕਰਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਫੇਕ ਨੰਬਰ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਏਦਾਂ ਕਾਲਸ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਕੋਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਟੇਟਮੈਂਟ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ
ਫੇਕ ਫੂਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਕਰਨੇ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਡਰਾਉਣਾ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਆਪ ਵੀ ਡਰ ਜਾਣਾ ਜਦ FBI ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਨਾ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਫਿਰ
ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਮ ਤੇ ਫੇਕ ਅਕਾਊਂਟ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਣਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਟਿਕਟੌਕ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਭੇਜੀ ਵੀ ਹੋਊਗੀ
ਹਾਂ ਯੂ ਸੈਂਡ ਇਟ ਟੂ ਮੀ
ਹਰਿਆਣਵੀ ਗਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਰੈਂਡਮਲੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਆਹ ਕੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਭਾਈ ਹਰਿਆਣਵੀ ਕਦੋਂ ਬੋਲਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਏ it was a Haryanvi guy he was talking shit
Squamish ਭਾਜੀ ਨੇ ਹੱਥ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੀਤਾ
was he ਹਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਜਾਣਦਾ but 855 was he pretending to be me or was it more like a parody kind of a thing?
More like a parody kind of thing.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, Squamish.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਵਾਈਟ ਖਾਲਸਾ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਸਿੰਘੋ
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਪੈਟ ਕਿੰਗ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਕਲੋਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਰਿਮਾਰਕਸ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ to know Canada you need to know the neighbors ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਜੀ ਗੱਲ ਲੱਗੀ ਕਿ even despite all the hate that we see our Sikh organizations are continuously finding the opportunity to help Canadians, whether it was through COVID times, even through the Alberta, you guys seen tons of the Calgary area, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Langar Seva. That happens all the time. Like it's in truckloads worth of food that goes to people. We don't check if their income or whatever. They come and they take it. And that example goes around the world. And then something really highlighted was 206 in the UK who stood to rescue that Sikh girl, right? I think it's not about taking on the identity of you need to look a certain way, right? You need to shave your beard and more values, and that's something that no matter where people are need to realize that Sikhs are upholding the identity which they have unique to their own culture, but it's from the times when there are other if you look at the Europeans, they used to have long hair and beard as well, and within Christian they call their Christ had long hair, beard as well, right? And there are references about wearing turban as well, because there's hot areas. They had a certain cloth and stuff on their head. Prophet Muhammad, same thing. He had a turban, right? So I feel like if some community loses their way of what their ancestors looked like or the way they were, and we didn't, that doesn't mean that we are a subject of to be made fun of. Anyhow, moving on, Sikhs have the qualities, and over the time, people have thought of, forgot about it. The contributions that they've made to the world and its current existence is tremendous. I've posted a video about a female from UK who actually really talked about, if 200 Sikhs can do something in a peaceful manner, staying strong on what they wanted to do was basically rescue the girl and bring somewhat justice to the situation, right? Her parents were trying to get the girl back, and they made it happen. And they delivered the message they wanted to. And there's a lot to be learned. I'm pretty sure Canadians who are fed up with these Indian accounts who spread hate all the time. Example, Alberta, there were 3 or 4 horses, these Khalsa things were riding it, and that is being pushed as this is a big crime, right? They need to get over that. These are manly activities. We take care of our neighbors. We enjoy manly activities. Sooner Canadians would realize that they still are holding what they should have been doing regardless. Those are my 3 points, and I'm glad that they come into the realization. Platforms like this, we need to have more discussions, and that needs to happen from the later set of, or the older set of Canadians versus the newer ones, right? We know, we respect Canada and what Canada has done, regardless of all these hate accounts or people are spreading hate. The respect is going to stay in. We know what Justin Trudeau has done. We know what the justice system has done for Sikhs. And that's where I stand.
Yeah, ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਸੀ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਵੀ ਨੀਡ ਮੋਰ ਜੇਜ਼ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਨੇ ਲਾਈਕ ਸਕੋਮਿਸ਼ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਵਨ ਆਫ them ਕੋਇਨ ਹੈ ਰਿਚ ਹੁਣ ਹੈ ਤੇ
I feel like Harjeet, there's a possibility, they paid the man for his time, $500 or something to do a podcast, so I think that might be a role possibly.
I think ਨਹੀਂ but ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੈਟ ਦਾ ਕੇਸ ਹੈ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਜੈਨੂਇਨ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਲੱਗਦਾ I think he was helped ਇਹਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੇਸ ਵਿੱਚ I think he was helped by some Sikh gentleman ਤੇ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਵੀ ਸੀ
ਜਦੋਂ ਦੀ ਅਰੈਸਟ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੀ ਅਰੈਸਟ ਹੋਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਉਦੋਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੇਲ ਮਨੀ ਆ I think $10,000 ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਪੇ ਕਰੀ ਸੀ ਬੇਲ
ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਨਾਮ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਬਲਿਕਲੀ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਨਾ ਬਤੀਕਲੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਸੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇਖੀ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਸੀ ਪਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਕਰਿਆ
ਹਾਂ
Was Pat arrested?
ਹਾਂ ਪੈਟ ਅਰੈਸਟ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਤੇ
Yeah, he was leading the truck convoy, right?
Oh, no way. So some Sikh guy got him out of jail or what?
Yes, that is what I heard.
So the guy paid the bail money for him. So
silently.
And his security guard was Sikh too. His bodyguard afterwards.
Hey, Canadian Squamish, you might be from Canada, bro. I feel like Canadians need to come together and start a private security company, an armed private security company with all the Punjabi Sikhs being shot. Is that possible?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, but मैं कह रहा थी अच्छा Coin, what do you think of the idea if like nowadays I go to some of these Pakistani channels and some of their YouTubers, are you guys okay also appearing on some of the other YouTubers podcasts and channels? You don't have to show your face, but talking about the Khalistan issue and especially your lens, maybe Pakistan is not the best place for but I'm thinking like how do we get more? My mind is always working right. How do we get more? I really want to get more of the people who the youth who are in America, like the diaspora born youth here, excited about Khalistan and the issue because it really impacts them. I think
Arjit, I think we need to use this eventually. We need a lot of eyes on it, but the thing to do is you got to use fear tactics. Like, hey, there's a possibility that ICE is going to deport your ass back to India even if you were born here. Maybe that'll get them a little...
No, but I'm not joking. It's a problem. पता क्या I think ਦੇਖੋ ਰਿਐਲਿਟੀ ਇਹੀ ਆ ਆਈ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਸੈਡ ਰਿਐਲਿਟੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੈਡ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਜਾਂ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਯਾਰ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਦੇਖੋ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਲੱਡ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਲਚਰ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਡਿਵੈਲਪ ਹੋਇਆ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ ਇਹ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਸੋਸਾਇਟੀਜ਼ ਹੈਵ ਰੀਚਡ ਸਚ ਅ ਲੈਵਲ ਆਫ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਮੈਂਟ ਕਿ the individual is paramount and they have learned how to accept people from all different parts of the world but ਦੇਖੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੋਸਾਇਟੀਆਂ ਕੰਸਟਰਕਟ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੈਲਿਊਜ਼ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਲਚਰ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਸਨ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਟਾਈਮ ਬਾਅਦ ਡਿਵੈਲਪ ਹੋਇਆ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਾ ਥੋੜੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਰਾਊਂਡ ਪੈਗ ਇਨ ਸਕੁਅਰ ਹੋਲ ਟਾਈਪ ਜਾਂ ਸਕੁਅਰ ਹੋਲ ਇਨ ਰਾਊਂਡ ਪੈਗ ਵਟਐਵਰ ਇਟ ਇਜ਼ ਕਾਲਡ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਰਹੇਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਤੇ ਫॉर ਲਾਈਕ 7th 8th ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੱਕ ਯੂ ਵਿਲ ਨਾਟ ਬੀ ਏਬਲ ਟੂ ਫਿਗਰ ਆਊਟ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਹੂ ਵਾਸ देयर ਨਾਟ ਬਟ ਸੋ ਦੈਟਸ ਅ ਫੈਕਟ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹੋਮਲੈਂਡ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਹੋਮਲੈਂਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ irrespective where you live we will always be under threat and you know under confusion or even under confusion of who we are ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ confusion who you are ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਟੌਰਚਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਮੈਂ ਸੱਚੀ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਆ ਮੇਰਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਹੀ ਖੇਡ ਰਿਹਾ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਯਾਰ ਇਹ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਮੈਂ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਚਾਹੇ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ 'ਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਟੇਟ ਟੈਰਰਿਜ਼ਮ ਵੀ ਦੇਖੀ ਆਈ ਵਾਜ਼ ਲੱਕੀ ਟੂ ਸਰਵਾਈਵ ਥਰੂ ਦੈਟ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਕੇਮ ਹੇਅਰ ਬਟ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਚਾਹੇ ਉਨੇ ਸਕਿੱਲ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਰੇ ਦੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਕੋਲ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਬਟ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਆਈ ਹੈਵ ਮਾਈ ਆਈਡੈਂਟੀਟੀ ਆਈ ਨੋ ਮਾਈ ਹੋਮ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਨਾ ਹਰਜੀਤ ਹੂ ਆਰ ਯੂ ਐਂਡ ਵੇਅਰ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਫਰੋਮ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸ਼ੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਫਰੋਮ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੈਟਸ ਇਟ it's never going to change till the last you know moment of my life ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਯਾਰ ਇਹ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛੂਗਾ ਇਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਕੂਲ 'ਚ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਊਗਾ ਇਹਦੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਕੀ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਪੱਗ ਬੰਨ੍ਹਦਾ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਆ ਗੋਰੇ ਨੇ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਇਟਸ ਨਾਟ ਅ ਸਮਾਲ ਥਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉੱਥੇ ਰੇਸਿਜ਼ਮ ਵੀ ਹੋਊਗੀ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਆਲ ਹੀ ਹੈਜ਼ ਟੂ ਹੈਂਡਲ ਹਨੇਰੀਆਂ ਲਿਆ ਦੇਣਗੇ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ you know they have the skills they know how to articulate they know how to build the case ਤੇ ਕਮਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡੇਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਖੋ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਐਡਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਟੈਪ ਲਿੱਤਾ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਉਹਨੇ ਖੜ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਕਿ ਬਈ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸਕੇ ਉਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਯੂਥ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੁੜਿਆ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਰੈਫਰੈਂਡਮ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਉਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਉਹ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਰੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਆ ਉਹੀ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਦਾ ਯੂਥ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜੰਮਿਆ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਹਾਊ ਡੂ ਵੀ ਗੈਟ ਦੈਟ Is somebody speaking? Sorry, Coin, I can't hear you. Okay. I can't hear anyone, guys. Sorry. I'm saying I see speakers going off, mics going off. I can't hear anyone. Okay, I'll probably have to just disconnect this space. Coin, if anybody is listening, if you guys can open a separate space, I think that'll be great. ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਵੈਸੇ ਵੀ ਲੰਬਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕੰਮ I think this conversation should continue and ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ